The King's Avatar audiobook by Kevin the King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation Chapter 161 Chapter 161. It isn't easy being an expert. Toya finally fell. Even though he had entered the enraged state with higher speed and faster cast times, it was no use. In front of Ye Xiu, these were of no use. Lord Grimm seemed like a machine specially designed against him, mechanically precise without any mistakes. Every one of the skills used by Toya was completely suppressed, whether it be by interruption or by being the first to attack. With countless variations and numerous methods, it was fortunate that Toya wasn't an actual person, otherwise he'd be so sad that he'd have coughed up blood from being suppressed so hard. Toya fell and the system announcement popped up. Another incontestable record appeared once again. Full Moon Guild, 28-01-27. Compared to Blue Brook Guild's record of 30-45-66, their record beat it by 2.5 minutes. Compared to the other records set, it was just as ridiculous. Every time Ye Xiu beat a record, it was always by so much more, so much so that it made others feel hopeless. For Blue Brook Guild's record to have lasted so long, that meant that no other guild was able to beat it by even 1 second. Only Ye Xiu could beat it by 2.5 minutes. A pile of messages immediately stormed onto the World Channel. Full Moon Guild. Why Full Moon Guild? Lord Grimm again. Wasn't Lord Grimm from Blue Brook Guild? Why did he run to Full Moon Guild? Steamed Bun Invasion. When are you going to pay me back for that 5 gold I lent? The messages were a complete mess. There was even one that mentioned Steamed Bun Invasion's name. Steamed Bun Invasion replied on the World Channel, "Don't worry. Once I gather up 10 gold, I'll return it to you all at once." Sending a message on the World Channel had a cooldown. A message could only be sent every 2 minutes, so the other side couldn't reply immediately. Plus, most of the messages on the World Channel were just jokes, so it'd be much faster and better to reply in private. But with this reply, quite a lot of players copying him and sending payment reminders on the World Channel. In a short moment, a bunch of "Man, when are you going to return to me my girlfriend?" came out, making many speechless. Maple Tree was naturally unimaginably excited and started chatting friendly with members of his guild. There were very few that wouldn't acknowledge that a guild like Full Moon Guild could set a record like that. Those people were rather narrow-minded. When the announcement came out, many in the guild began paying attention to what type of equipment would be rewarded. When a new record was set, there was a 100% chance of acquiring a purple equipment. It was just that Blue Brook Guild, tyrannical ambition, those sorts of guilds didn't care. They only wanted the record for the fame. They had seen plenty of low-leveled purple equipment, so they simply didn't put it in their eyes. Only Maple Tree, a guild leader of that level, would feel excited about what purple equipment would come out. He couldn't be blamed. Even as the guild leader, he didn't have a single piece of purple equipment. He couldn't even compare to Lord Grimm and the others. When he saw them today with their newly switched purple weapons, Maple Tree's eyes nearly popped out. Purple weapon. Don't look at how the big guild's elite teams all had them. In reality, they were quite rare. For example, in his guild, if a purple weapon came out, the player who got it wouldn't care if it fit his class. Whoever got it could sell it for a lot of money. The more thoughtful players would give their teammates some sort of small compensation. The selfish, well, they wouldn't do anything. The dispute that followed had existed since the very beginning of Glory. Maple Tree felt quite good because the end reward was Purple Revolver, which perfectly suited his class. Moreover, the laborers he hired hadn't rolled for it, so it went directly to him. He was naturally extremely excited. Maple Tree was still chattering in the guild channel. Lord Grimm went to his side. The record set. Yes, thank you. Maple Tree recovered and immediately thanked him. The Scarlet Moon set, Ye Xiu asked. Oh, Maple Tree was so happy he forgot. He had brought the Scarlet Moon set with him and traded Ye Xiu at once. The 4 parts were the head, chest, belt, and legs. It was missing the shoulders and shoes. Ye Xiu received them and went a trade Tang Ru. What? Tang Ru accepted the trade. Equipment for you. Ye Xiu put the 4 parts of the set into the trade window. From where? Maple Tree just gave them. We helped him set a record, Ye Xiu said. Oh, Tang Ru confirmed the trade and wore the newly obtained equipment. This set naturally had its own style when it was all put together. Tang Ru had the main parts to it, so the general style was already clear. Her body was covered in scarlet leather with a belt strapped around her waist. Soft Mist immediately looked a lot stronger. Anything for me? Steamed Bun Invasion snuck in a question. Not yet, Ye Xiu said. Steamed Bun Invasion wasn't happy, but it wasn't towards Ye Xiu, rather it was towards Maple Tree. He charged at him. Noob Guild Leader, you're too stingy. Give me a set too. Ah, there's no more, Maple Tree said in confusion. The trade had already been completed. Why was there more? Stingy. Steamed Bun Invasion disdained. Maple Tree coughed blood. If he didn't add a bonus, that was stingy. Steamed Bun, don't worry. This deal was already agreed upon beforehand. Soft Mist first and then you, Ye Xiu said. Okay, no hurry, ladies first, Steamed Bun Invasion said. We still have 2 more runs. Maple Tree, are you still going? Ye Xiu asked. Oh, me. Maple Tree was now happily chatting with his friends and guild, so he didn't really want to go. But they had just helped him set a record, so if he just suddenly turned his head and refused them, that wasn't too good, right? Maple Tree was suffering over his decision when Ye Xiu said, "Then we'll continue," as he said that the 4 players had already left the party and made their own party on the side. They then left Full Moon Guild too. Wah! Maple Tree wanted to say something when the 4 directly entered the dungeon. They didn't even find someone else to add. So my contact with these experts ended just like this. Maple Tree was suddenly at a loss. The dungeon continued. Only having 4 players wasn't a problem for these experts. Since they weren't trying to set the record this time, they went around the entire map and killed every monster in every nook and cranny of the castle. Even excluding the fact that the dungeon boss always dropped a blue or higher equipment, the dungeon was still the most profitable place. Whether it be in money or experience, the rewards were much greater than in a leveling area. For most of the players, they could let go of not doing other things, but they had to use up all of their dungeon entries. The current dungeons could still be done 3 or 4 times, but the higher leveled the dungeon or the larger the scale of the dungeon, the fewer entries they would have. There would even be some dungeons that could only be run once a week. The progress was saved, but they were dungeons that couldn't be completed in a single day. After clearing all of the monsters, they had to clean up the boss. This time, Ye Xiu wasn't dedicated again and didn't fight Toya with all he had like last time. He was the same as yesterday, just casually directing everyone and played with Toya from time to time. Hey, why aren't you playing seriously? Tang Ru had objections. She didn't like it when people were hiding their strength. You mean like last time, Ye Xiu said. Obviously. I'm already old. How can I always play like that? You youngsters have more strength, Ye Xiu said. How old are you? Tang Ru was angry. In terms of esports, I really am pretty old, Ye Xiu said. So what? You can clearly play very well, Tang Ru said. Look at it like this. Ye Xiu said, the theory is the same as in other sports. Young people grow stronger and rely on their bodies to win. But after a few years, they have to rely on their experience and knowledge. They have to use their brains to win. Against young players' bodies, they could occasionally compete with them, but if they frequently clashed, they would only shorten their lifespan as an athlete. It's the same as in esports. Using extremely fast hand speed to compete in mechanics, that's the style of you young players. But for people my age, it's better if we do that less, Ye Xiu said. It can't be that exaggerated, Tang Ru said. In a few years you'll understand. Do you really think being an expert is that easy? Ye Xiu laughed. As a result, Tang Ru didn't say anything more and continued to fight Boss Toya. Ye Xiu didn't fully exert himself either. His overall performance was about the same as Tang Ru. Because of this, they had some trouble finishing Toya off. They didn't add anyone else and they once again went in as 4. Afterwards, they finished using up all of their desolate land entries. Everyone, I'll be going off first, Suma Cheng said habitually. Once they finished the dungeon runs, she would go offline first. Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion said their farewells. Ye Xiu obviously wouldn't say anything. Suma Cheng was practically sitting next to him. He took off his headphones and turned his head to ask, "Are you going back?" "Yup, I'm going back." Suma Cheng also took off her headphones. She logged out of the game and mouse, ready to shut down the computer. No, that's the server computer, my young lady. Please don't shut that down." Ye Xiu sweated madly. He almost charged at Suma Cheng to stop her. "Oh, I forgot." Suma Cheng also jumped in fright. She also knew what would happen if she shut down the server computer. It was just that she was so used to shutting down her computer, so she forgot. So dangerous. Ye Xiu wiped away some sweat. Suma Cheng was a pro player. Her hand speed was fast. It was lucky that he was even faster. "I'll be going then." Suma Cheng got up and saw Ye Xiu turn off the computer monitor. "See you. I don't know when I can come next time. The internet cafe still is really dangerous, right?" Suma Cheng said. "Yup," Ye Xiu nodded. "Sai, I'll be off then." Suma Cheng regretfully left the reception desk. "Are you hungry? Do you want something to eat?" Ye Xiu asked. "Okay." Suma Cheng quickly came back. "We have braised beef, mushroom chicken, tomatoes and eggs, pickled pork, shrimp, fish, all kinds of different instant noodles. Which one would you like?" Ye Xiu asked. "Oh, I'll take the mushroom chicken." Suma Cheng thought hard before replying. "Hey, just a moment." Ye Xiu had already gotten the mushroom chicken noodles and went to get boiling water. The King's Avatar Volume 3 A Stormy Situation Chapter 162 Chapter 162 Half the screen when Ye Xiu came back with the cooked instant noodles. He saw that Suma Cheng had moved a wooden stool next to his seat. She had changed the settings for the game to a windowed screen. Her hand moved the mouse as if she were searching for something. "The noodles have arrived," Ye Xiu announced. "Put it here." Suma Cheng tapped the table beside her. The reception desk at Happy Internet Cafe had 2 layers. The outside layer was the front desk, while the inner layer was a regular table that things could be set upon. Ye Xiu put the noodles on the table and went back to his seat. He saw that Suma Cheng was looking for something on the internet. "What are you looking for? I'll help you look." Ye Xiu put his hands on the keyboard. "That year we were holding hands," Suma Cheng said. "The new drama," Ye Xiu said as he typed it in. With one search in a video platform, several links popped up. "It's not really new. Yunxiu recommended it. I hadn't seen it before," Suma Cheng said. Chu Yunxiu, Team Misty Rain's ace player. She was also the player that Ye Xiu regarded as the #1 female player in terms of tactics and skill. The Alliance didn't have many female players. Compared to the male players, they belonged to a disadvantaged group, causing them to be relatively close to each other. They had their own special circle. They also had their own exclusive QQ, similar to Skype group, which had all the female Alliance players. From those who were retired to those who still played to those who were new. Ye Xiu obviously didn't have the qualifications to join the QQ group, but since he was close to Suma Cheng, he would sometimes see it. If no one knew anything about it, they wouldn't think that it was a gathering of Glory Pro players. They talked about clothing, makeup, celebrities, astrological signs, and gossip in the Glory community. At least, during the few times Ye Xiu had snuck a peek at it, he hadn't seen any discussions about serious things like tactics and techniques. It couldn't even compare to a normal guild in Glory. At least in those, experts would sometimes exchange pointers. "What episode are you on?" Ye Xiu asked. 12. Opening up the 12th episode, Ye Xiu handed the earphones over to Suma Cheng. I've worn them for so long that my ears are already hurting. Then turn up the volume so you won't need to wear them. Suma Cheng turned up the volume. The first sound that came out was clearly from Glory's lifelike sound effects as well as Steamed Bun Invasion's voice. Ye Xiu opened up the settings and closed the game's sound and voice. He then typed, "Steamed Bun, let's practice our hand speed." To do so, if you're going to say something, type it out instead. Yes, I like this practice. Wanna compete to see who can type out the most words in a minute? Steamed Bun Invasion immediately went into serious mode. Line Canyon, Ye Xiu declared and then headed towards it. The game was quiet, though it seemed like Ye Xiu was very suited for this. A song drifted from the headphones hanging on Suma Cheng's neck. "This song sounds awful," Ye Xiu said. "Yeah, skip ahead," Suma Cheng said. "How much?" 2 minutes 43 seconds. His mouse moved and the cursor flashed from the game to the web browser. He skipped ahead exactly 2 minutes 43 seconds. The screen was then split in half. One half was a TV show while the other half was a game. With Ye Xiu's skill level, this dungeon was too easy. He would glance at the TV show from time to time. As for Suma Cheng, she was just watching the TV show, so she didn't need to completely focus on the game. She would glance to see the battles in game from time to time. "Are the noodles ready to eat yet?" Suma Cheng said. "Go ahead. Are you going to eat?" Suma Cheng took the noodles and asked. "I'll drink 2 sips of soup. I'll wait till you finish these 2 monsters." Suma Cheng saw that Ye Xiu was busy dealing with 2 wild monsters. The 2 monsters were defeated quickly. Ye Xiu made his Lord Grim move forward as he took 2 sips of the soup. "Not bad. Whoever cooked these instant noodles is quite good," Ye Xiu said as he handed the bowl back. "It's not bad." Suma Cheng took it and began eating. In game, Lord Grim arrived at Line Canyon and partied up with Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion. 7 Fields and Sleeping Moon had also run over to join the party. Those two would almost always mix in with Brother Expert when a chance came. They didn't really play with their guild anymore. Even today, when their guild came together as one happy family, the two didn't think much of it. The dungeon went by smoothly, and in the blink of an eye, they reached the first boss. The romance in the TV show still hadn't made any headway. The female lead knew from episode 1 that the male lead was her childhood friend, but the male lead still thought of the female lead as a newly made friend. Tusk, this guy's so stupid," Ye Xiu commented on the male lead. Mine, light source set." Suma Cheng saw that the fallen boss had dropped the light source top. Light source was a level 30 launcher set. "Got it." Ye Xiu chose to roll for it and the others immediately renounced it. "It's just level 30 equipment." Ye Xiu felt that Suma Cheng had been too excited. She was a pro player, so besides self-made equipment, it didn't make sense for her to be so excited about any other equipment. "It looks so pretty," Suma Cheng said. Ye Xiu was speechless. For God-level experts like him, their skills are amazing. Their knowledge is exceptional, but towards Glory's clothing, hairstyle, fashion, etc., any random female player would be better than them. In this area, female players were gods and they were noobs. The speechless Ye Xiu threw the light source upper garment into his backpack. The dungeon continued, as did the TV show. Line Canyon took the 5 of them around for 30-minute runs. It was a bit shorter than the 45-minute episodes. After 2 runs, the episode had finished. Just as the next episode was playing, Ye Xiu felt his left shoulder drop. "You falling asleep?" Ye Xiu asked. "Yeah," the head on his shoulder made a noise. The 3rd run continued. Ye Xiu's movements became steadier. His movements were so steady that even the smoke from the cigarette ash in his mouth wouldn't tremble. They advanced through the dungeon while the TV show continued playing. After killing the final boss, the 3 dungeon runs were completed and the TV show had finished as well. The ending song played from the headphones, but Suma Cheng didn't tell Ye Xiu to turn it off. Ye Xiu turned his head and looked. The furry girl's eyes had already closed. Ha 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 ha, today's luck is pretty good. 3 parts of my dark mark set actually dropped. Are you guys jealous of my luck? Steamed Bun Invasion swiftly typed out, practicing his hand speed. Not bad, not bad. Soft Mist, shout out the Scarlet Moon upper garment you got in the World Channel. You should be able to trade it for the shoulders or shoes that you still need. Ye Xiu said. Apart from the Battle Mage Scarlet Moon set had also dropped, however, Soft Mist already had it. Luckily, equipment could be traded so everyone could trade for the parts they needed. Okay, Tang Ru answered. In a short moment, Soft Mist sent a message for a trade to the World Channel. Keep sending them out until someone contacts you. Ye Xiu instructed. Tang Ru really needed this type of instruction too. She was completely new to games, unlike Steamed Bun Invasion. Are we still going to Boneyard? Seven Fields and Sleeping Moon asked. Not now, Ye Xiu replied. Okay, everyone answered. Right now, Boneyard wasn't worth it for the experience. Ye Xiu also didn't need any materials from the dungeon. Besides, getting the materials for the 1000-chance umbrella by himself wasn't practical. Okay, everyone scattered. Those who wanted to dungeon went to dungeon. Those who wanted to arena went to the arena. Those who wanted to trade equipment went to trade equipment. Ye Xiu had Lord Grim randomly clear monsters in the nearby area. I've traded it, Tang Ru messaged. Good, you're only missing one now, Ye Xiu said. It really is better than normal equipment. Tang Ru said. Of course. Ye Xiu replied. Level 30 sets won't need to be switched until level 40. Oh, Tang Ru answered without saying anything else. After a short while she got up to move around. She went to fill up her teacup and as usual walked to pay a visit to the receptionist's desk. But this time she jumped in fear. What was that furry thing leaning on Ye Xiu? Tang Ru's face stared in astonishment. Ye Xiu turned and gave her a helpless look. Who's that? Tang Ru finally figured out that it was a person. Mew Mew. Ye Xiu used the nickname Tang Ru liked. Tang Ru was astonished, so she was playing here. Yeah, Ye Xiu said. She fell asleep, Tang Ru asked. Yeah, she should go upstairs to sleep. She can sleep in my room, Tang Ru said. Don't worry about it, here is good, Ye Xiu smiled. Make sure she doesn't catch a cold. If she were Chen Guo, she would have grabbed her sister and carried her to bed, but Tang Ru didn't make him. After saying this, she went back to her seat. Mew Mew sounds disgusting when it comes from you. Suma Cheng looked like she was sleep-talking. Yeah, I almost vomited those instant noodles. Ye Xiu said, the instant noodles are in my stomach. Suma Cheng said, I also ate a bowl tonight. Really, what flavor? Simmered beef. Was the cook good? Very good, the same as your bowl. That's good. Suma Cheng finished and then became silent. When are you planning on going back? After a long while, Ye Xiu asked. When are you off your shift? Suma Cheng asked. 7. Then me too, okay. It's kind of cold, Suma Cheng shivered. Obviously, everything you're wearing is just a disguise, Ye Xiu said as he took off his jacket and put it on Suma Cheng. Where was I in the show? I kind of forgot. Suma Cheng said, it's not your fault, the show sucks. Ye Xiu said, you're looking down on Yunxiu's tastes again. Suma Cheng said, I remember all of my opponent's weaknesses very clearly. Ye Xiu said the King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 163, Chapter 163. Shot at even when lying down that night. Ye Xiu didn't conduct any more intense activities. However, many people in the 10th server felt uneasy because of his presence. Records. It was obviously because of the records. In the end, Desolate Land's dungeon record was broken. Lord Grim once again proved his indispensability towards records. And Full Moon Guild, the name which made all the big guilds feel sick, took their spot on the Desolate Land leaderboards. Even worse, Full Moon Guild's players weren't humble at all. In a guild, the guild leader's temperament greatly affected the entire guild. Maple Tree's personality, which knew no difference between the heavens and earth, crumbled a little after seeing the extraordinary coordination between Lord Grim and the team. But after breaking the record, He thought of how he fulfilled his role in the team perfectly and couldn't help but consider himself a member of the expert team. His personality, which had crumbled a little, flared up again. Full Moon Guild's members stopped chatting in the guild channel. They changed to the world channel. Their flaunting there made others feel envious. The other guild leaders grinded their teeth in hatred. They had hired someone to break the record for him. Why were they acting like they were so amazing? Many players in the world channel sneered at them, but Full Moon Guild was able to counter them. They brought up Blue Brook Guild and Tyrannical Ambition as similar examples. If these amazing guilds did what they were doing, why should they be ashamed of doing the same? Getting shot at while down, Blue River and Cold Night felt gloomy, but there was nothing they could say because this was reality. Even the guilds who hadn't been able to invite Lord Grimm could argue against Full Moon Guild. Asking Lord Grimm for help setting a dungeon record had always been a task on their daily agenda. If they scoffed at Full Moon Guild and then went to ask Lord Grimm for help, wouldn't that be the same as slapping their own face? With this, the entire world was now aware of Lord Grimm's substituting acts, so the records set by Lord Grimm only had so much weight to them. This was why many players looked down on Full Moon Guild, including Blue Brook Guild and Tyrannical Ambition. New server, new players born as cows and not afraid of the tigers were everywhere. But then again, no matter how strong the tigers were, it was only a game. What was there to be afraid of? Playing games is for fun. Nobody spends money on a game to treat it as bitter work. This was why there were many people who said whatever was on their mind. Blue Brook Guild, Tyrannical Ambition. HMPH. As the players cursed more and more, the braver they got. Slowly, Blue Brook Guild and Tyrannical Ambition were put on the same level as Full Moon Guild, second-rate guilds. They were trash that couldn't set a record if they didn't ask for a substitution. The current number 2 spot on the Desolate Land leaderboard was still held by Blue Brook Guild, but this reality was completely ignored by the players. Blue River and Cold Night didn't have enough time to deal with this development. The two couldn't help but think of an old proverb, the bird in the lead will be shot. As the two guilds who looked for Lord Grimm first, were they really going to be discredited like this? Putting it this way, it was quite alarming to hear about. But at this moment, the entire world was voicing their dissent towards their actions. The three guilds would sometimes be mentioned by their name too, which made them feel frightened. I say this isn't right, Cold Night messaged Blue River. It's all because of that idiot, Full Moon. Blue River typed furiously. If those stupid guild members hadn't run to the world channel to make a mess all over the place, where would they have gotten all this hate? If all the hate didn't come out, how could they have been shot at even while lying down? They were big guilds and they paid careful attention to their reputation. Right now, they were being put on the same level as that second-rate guild. Plus, they were thought of as having no strength. The damage done was just too high. But even if they burned down all of Full Moon Guild, the problem would still be there. There was only one way to counter these remarks: set a new record to shut everyone up. However, the record king Lord Grimm blocked their path like a huge mountain. No matter how hard they tried to get over it, they wouldn't be able to. There was also no way they could rope him in. They were all saying how asking Lord Grimm for help meant that they had no strength. After this short discussion between Cold Night and Blue River, they fell silent. Currently, their guild was amidst a huge crisis. Even the other guilds were at a loss. In their current situation, inviting Lord Grimm to help set a record was a shameless deed. No one wanted to ruin their reputation. Even if they pulled Lord Grimm into their guild, a move like that would bring a lot of criticism from other players. In short, the name Lord Grimm still ensured a dungeon record. But at the same time, his name lost value if it were used. This was because using Lord Grimm to set a record for a guild would only receive negative comments from everyone. This was completely opposite from why big guilds were setting records. However, thinking back, Lord Grimm was now like a parasite. Whichever guild he floated to would be regarded as diseased. Putting it like this, it would be quite nice if the enemies had him. For example, Herb Garden and Excellent Dynasty were quite happy. Their archenemies Blue Brook Guild and Tyrannical Ambition were being ridiculed in the World Channel. This was extremely satisfying. Excellent Dynasties, Ye Xiu was in the game as well and watched the scene unfold. No one could have predicted that things would turn out this way. Ye Xiu was originally very happy with what happened to Tyrannical Ambition, but as he continued to think about it, he suddenly recognized another point and immediately became even happier. Killing two birds with one stone. Ye Xiu, what a blunder! Ye Xiu couldn't hold back his happiness. He looked at the time. It was extremely late, but he believed that disturbing Liu Hao with the news about what happened was worth it. Ye Xiu went offline and then called Liu Hao. "Hello." Liu Hao answered the phone with a tone of drowsiness. He had been sleeping nicely until he was suddenly awoken. No one would be happy, but Liu Hao suppressed his anger. The huge mistake he had done before had made him aware that keeping calm was very important. "Good news, Liu. Ye Xiu's about to run out of luck," Ye Xiu shouted. "Oh, this really is good news. But no matter how good the news is, you could have just told me tomorrow. Only bad and urgent news should be reported at night so we can figure out a plan quickly, right? Okay, I'm tired. I'll talk to you later." Liu Hao finished and then hung up the phone. The buzzing noise from the phone left Ye Xiu somewhat at a loss. He recognized that Liu Hao's words were very reasonable. Good news could come later, nothing bad would happen. But the earlier something bad is handled, the better the chances they could have to fix it. He just didn't want to believe that only after 2 weeks, Liu Hao unexpectedly became so rational that it almost seemed cold and ruthless. Just how big was his previous wound? Ye Xiu silently put down the phone. His happiness from before dimmed down. Liu Hao's reasoning meant that he had an even more important goal. Ye Xiu was no longer his main opponent. He had already given the task to someone else. It had been thrown to Ye Xiu to deal with. Ye Xiu felt disturbed. He managed the guild. He put a lot of effort into the club's development. Nicely put, he could be considered a behind-the-scenes hero. However, there was no longer any chance for him to be in the spotlight like a pro player ever again. And the person who made him lose that chance was Ye Xiu. Ye Xiu suddenly clenched his fists. It was Ye Xiu who judged him as having no talent and not putting enough effort. On what basis? On what basis could he deny me so easily with just that? On what basis could the club kick him from the pro player list, then make him go online to manage the guild? Ye Xiu. The reason Ye Xiu and Liu Hao mingled together so well was because of their deep hatred for this name. But he never had the chance. His position was far beneath the power of Excellent Dynasty's team captain, until he noticed Liu Hao. Speaking of this, he was the one who successfully roped in Liu Hao. He had demonstrated himself as a lesson to Liu Hao, making Liu Hao hate Ye Xiu more and more day by day. But now Liu Hao had already stepped on Ye Xiu and had even risen up in the club. But himself, besides venting his resentment, what did he have to gain? Liu Hao no longer thought messing with Ye Xiu was worth it anymore. He had already found a new goal to pursue. And himself? Was he still going to play this little game with him? Was he destined to be at such a low position? Ye Xiu thought about it and slowly unclenched his fist. In the game, Plantago Seed had been disturbed greatly by Lord Grimm as well. Team Tiny Herb's pro players didn't know how hard it was to get these materials, so they had recklessly gambled it all away to Lord Grimm. These were all uncommon materials. Even with their guild size, it wasn't easy to gather those materials. In reality, Plantago Seed really wanted to give them a suggestion. The arena could be accessed in all servers. You guys can go to the old servers. Those herb gardens were a lot bountiful than they were. But Plantago Seed hated to give up the chance to be with these pro players. They were his idols who he looked up to. Holding on to just this, Plantago Seed clenched his teeth and swallowed the suggestion. However, the ridicule towards Blue Brook Guild on the World Channel really did make him happy. After a few cheerful moments, Plantago Seed felt like he should share his happiness with others. And the person who he wanted to share it with the most was Blue River. He opened up his friends list and looked. Blue River wasn't online. Plantago Seed really felt sorry for him. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 164, Chapter 164. Asking for help separately. Tyrannical Ambitions. Cold Night wasn't online either. The two of them were the same. They had both lost control of the situation in the 10th server. They felt that they needed to ask headquarters for help, so they logged out and ran to the heavenly domain. Both of them knew each other's ids in the heavenly domain, and they were both friends too. When they came online, they saw each other on their friends list and had a tacit understanding of each other's situation. Blue River hastily contacted his guild leader, Changing Spring. Changing Spring had originally said that he had wanted to go and see exactly how great Lord Grimm was, but he never had the opportunity to do that. They had asked Lord Grimm for help with Boneyard, but at that time Lord Grimm had gathered his own team, so there was no spot available for him. After Boneyard, Lord Grimm's strength was recognized by their guild. The dungeon record completely exceeded what they had imagined. As a result, there was no need to personally appraise his strength. All they could do was try their best to win over Lord Grimm. In the end, after fighting over and over again for him, Lord Grimm was won by Full Moon Guild. And that guild was the one that had caused such a disaster for Blue Brook Guild. Blue River didn't know what to say. Changing Spring was also cautiously bringing his guild's experts to try and set records. The dungeons in the heavenly domain were on a completely different level, however. Sometimes, they weren't even able to complete the dungeon in a single run. Even for an elite team from the three great guilds, if too many players died, there would be a part of the dungeon where they wouldn't be unable to continue towards. The Blue Brook Guild's team was currently in such a predicament. A 40-player dungeon, one run every week. They had sacrificed over half of their team in order to get past 2/3 of the dungeon. In this state, however, they had no way of advancing, so Changing Spring eventually made the decision to give up. Everyone exited the dungeon. Their morale was low. Soon after, they saw Blue River, who was supposed to be in the 10th server, waiting outside with his main account Blue Bridge Spring Snow. Changing Spring had known that Blue River was coming. Although he wasn't in a very good mood, no matter how he felt, he couldn't just ignore Blue River, so he kindly went over and asked him what the situation was. The players who were there were all the elite experts of Blue Brook Guild. Since they weren't outsiders, they gathered around him so they could listen in. After he explained what was going on, when Changing Spring hadn't even said anything yet, someone from the group of players sneered. Blue River didn't even need to look to know who it was. He was on good terms with nearly everyone there. However, there was one who he didn't get along with, Poplar Beach. Speaking of which, how unlucky. After going over to the 10th server, he had only come back to the heavenly domain twice, and coincidentally, he met that guy twice as well. It looked like his luck had been quite terrible recently. Super expert, hilarious, who went a pioneer in the 10th server again. Poplar Beach acted as if he was speaking to himself. Blue River couldn't avoid getting a bit angry. He had just told them the record Lord Grimm had set. Just from this achievement, who here couldn't see that this guy wasn't so simple? Poplar Beach obviously understood, but he still felt the need to mock him. This Boneyard record is a bit too abnormal. Changing Spring directly ignored what Poplar Beach said. That record can't be right. Yeah, quite a few experts agreed. Did he hack the leaderboards? The players gathered there liked to think this way. This was because they were so familiar with the game. Since they believed that such a record wasn't possible, their only explanation for it was hacking. However, that couldn't be taken seriously. Glory had gotten rid of external hacking long ago. Desolate Land's record doesn't seem as abnormal, Changing Spring noted. Yeah, it was made when they just hit level 30, but their equipment was pretty inadequate and their fifth player's skill was mediocre, Blue River said. Tusk, and they broke your record like that. Guild leader, let me try. I can guarantee that we'll take this record back. In this situation, all we have to do is set a new record and prove ourselves to the 10th server's new players, right? Poplar Beach interrupted again. Even though he was putting down Blue River, his judgment of the problem was still accurate. The reason Blue River returned was because he was looking for help like this. He needed experts. When the guild sent players over to pioneer in the 10th server, the guild couldn't afford to send too many elites. For example, the only 10th server players who were qualified to be a part of the elite team in the Heavenly Domain were probably just him and Thousand Creations. In addition, there were players on the team that were stronger than the two of them. Ignoring everyone else, only talking about Poplar Beach, Changing Spring had clearly said that Blue River wasn't as good as him. With a team of experts of this caliber, they'd definitely be able to beat any guild's elite teams in the 10th servers. They might even be able to beat Lord Grimm's record. Where are our account cards over there from? Changing Spring asked. There was no choice. In order to log in, you had to use an actual card. If you asked others to substitute, they had to be able to obtain the cards in order to do so. I have the data. I'll send it to you in a bit, Blue River said. Okay, then I'll get people to contact you, Changing Spring said. I'll be going, Blue River said and then logged out. Guild leader, let me go too. Poplar Beach actively signed up. Even though he didn't feel too good about Changing Spring constantly ignoring him, he was still very polite towards him. For an arrogant person like him, his ambitions weren't limited to just Blue River's spot as one of the 5 great experts. He also had the ambition to take over as guild leader. Unfortunately, his current records against the guild leader are 11 losses, 2 wins. Changing Spring was more skilled than he was. This was why whenever he talked to Changing Spring, he didn't dare say anything rude. Let's wait until Blue Bridge sends us the data. Once we know where the cards are, we can talk. Changing Spring calmly said, expressing his attitude clearly. You're not anything special, you're dispensable. We did really badly on this run. How many times have we run this? We were wiped out 2/3 of the way through. Think about where we went wrong. Okay, you guys can go, Changing Spring suddenly said. After explaining some things, his players went offline. The others all left as well. Only Poplar Beach and his companion stayed. They were all in the same mood. These players were all relatively new experts in Blue Brook Guild with Poplar Beach as their leader. They all liked to show off. Today, Poplar Beach's flaunting had been ignored, making their little group feel depressed. The guild leader clearly favors Blue Bridge, one person said. There's no choice. He's a guild leader. Of course, he wouldn't want any internal conflict in the guild. Just take a look at how he intentionally averted the duel between Blue River and Poplar Beach and you'll see what I mean. Another person said, yeah, he even sent Blue River over to the 10th server. How low? Do you guys even know where that Lord Grimm came from? That record is truly abnormal. Even though they all liked watching Poplar Beach mock Blue River, they still expressed their astonishment over this record. Boneyard. It really is freaky. I say we should study it for a bit, Poplar Beach said. He wasn't blindly arrogant. For example, when facing the stronger Changing Spring, he maintained his cool. On Blue Brook Guild's side, Changing Spring and Blue River discussed and chose people to go over to the 10th server. On Tyrannical Ambition's side, Jiang Yu heard Cold Knight's description of the current situation and knitted his brows. How could things have turned out like this? If it's like this, no one wins. How was Lord Grimm able to come up with all of this? Jiang Yu was puzzled. Lord Grimm, I'm afraid that things didn't go his way either. To have met with Full Moon, such a stupid guild, he's probably feeling depressed too, Cold Knight said. We can't bother with him right now. We need to rely on our own strength to take back this record. Jiang Yu's decision was the same as Blue Brook Guild's. The two were in the same plight. The two 10th server guild leaders also had the same intentions. However, right now, Blue Brook Guild is in the same situation as us, Cold Knight said. Substitution. There was never anything glamorous about any of it, but in this situation, we put ourselves in this situation. Blue Brook Guild will probably also try and find people to run Desolate Land, so we shouldn't compete against them in that dungeon. If we compete with them, one of us isn't going to be able to get the record. We'll give them Desolate Land. We'll go to Line Canyon and set a stable record. Aren't we almost level 33? Yeah, Cold Knight nodded his head. Line Canyon was level 33, so the highest records were made by those who were level 33. But there's still one thing we need to do before all of this, Jiang Yu said. What thing? Find Lord Grimm. Jiang Yu said. Him again? Cold Knight was surprised. Yes. However, this time we're not asking him to set a record. Instead, we're going to ask him to not touch the dungeon record. The price for that will be same as him setting one. Jiang Yu said. After saying this, the two suddenly fell silent. After a while, Cold Knight trembled and then said, No way, right. So you also thought of it. Jiang Yu's voice was much steadier. This guy, could he have calculated everything up to this step? From now on, he wouldn't even need to do anything. If we want to set a record, instead of buying him to set the record, we'll do the opposite and pay him to not set the record. Cold Knight said, in disbelief. The King's Avatar, Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 165, Chapter 165. Record kidnapping. The two of them stood like broken machines amidst the barren desert in the heavenly domain. The sand from the large gale seemed as if it was going to bury them. Lord Grimm. Without a guild, there was no way they could figure out his origins. There also weren't any signs of background powers assisting him. The 10th server's dungeon records were solely controlled by his technique. He had even taken control of all of the guilds. In the new server, dungeon records were extremely important for a guild's development. The new server was practically filled with new players. No matter how famous a guild's name was in the new server, they would simply be unknown to the eyes of new players. How could they establish their name towards new players? It was through dungeon records. These were undeniable reflections of a guild's strength. However, all of the 10th server's guilds had now been turned into jokes. In the eyes of everyone else, whoever Lord Grimm helped would obtain the record. Ignoring the new players, the big guilds themselves recognized the importance of having Lord Grimm when competing for the records and for him. Once he started to act, there would be no chance for them. The new players had no information about the records, but those who were experienced could immediately tell how ridiculous Lord Grimm's records were. It was impossible for them to achieve records like this, so if they didn't look for Lord Grimm, they couldn't do anything. In the end, the big guilds hadn't prepared well enough for this situation. How could they have imagined that such an overwhelming expert would appear? If the 10th server continued to be like this, it really would become a new age. None of the big guilds would have enough strength to take over. Experts. Experts were originally the biggest advantage that big guilds had in the new server, but with the presence of Lord Grimm, their experts were worthless. Since it's like this, what advantages did they have? They couldn't just continue spamming in the world channel that they were one of Glory's greatest guilds, could they? I'm also unsure whether this was all just a coincidence, Cold Knight said. If it's not, then not only does this guy have terrifying skill, but he has smarts too, Jiang Yu said. Should I go back and try to negotiate with him? Cold Knight said. Yeah, you should go, Glory 10th server. Blue River wasn't aware of this issue yet. He was still creating a dungeon team with Changing Spring. When Cold Knight returned to the 10th server, he checked his friends list but didn't see Blue River online. In his friends list, Lord Grimm's name was still lit. The world chat had calmed down quite a bit though. Right now, almost 5 o'clock, it was a period where there were only a few players online. With the passing of the wave of discussions over the dungeon records, the world chat had returned to its normal state. However, Cold Knight knew that even though the discussions had ended, it didn't mean that the matter was over. Their guild's image had been damaged. If they didn't hurry and seize a record, they might actually fall in the 10th server. "Brother, are you there?" Cold Knight sent Lord Grim a message. During the evening it was quite normal for a player to be AFK away from their keyboards. Here, Ye Xiu had been quietly killing monsters in the wild the entire time. "I want to discuss about Line Canyon with you," Cold Knight said. "Line Canyon, my level isn't high enough yet," Ye Xiu replied. "Brother, do you really not know what I mean?" Cold Knight carefully prodded. He really couldn't afford to offend him. Cold Knight held his breath. "Tell me." Ye Xiu replied. "This time for Line Canyon's record we hope that brother won't act," Cold Knight said. "Oh, the price for that is going to be even higher," Ye Xiu replied. The reply came instantly. There weren't any shocks or doubts. He directly moved to the discussion over to the price. If this guy said he hadn't planned anything beforehand, who would believe him? Lord Grim clearly knew better than he did. Lord Grim had prepared everything long ago. Cold Knight felt depressed. He had no choice but to follow up and ask, "What's the price?" 8 scarlet scorpion tails, 8 scarlet stingers, a scarlet berserker blade, an amber crystal, and 40 threads of sandworm silk. The reply was once again instant. It looked like he prepared the price long ago too. Cold Knight was still depressed. He went over the materials one by one and wanted to cry. Scarlet scorpion tails and scarlet stingers were both from Line Canyon's hidden boss, Scarlet Scorpion Assassin. The Scarlet Berserker Blade was the hidden boss illusion Swordmaster Ahung's saber, an orange weapon. The Sandworm Silk dropped from the other hidden boss, Sandworm. As for the Amber Crystal, that was a drop from the Line Canyon's wild boss, Ronin Alpine. Even just gathering these 5 items was extremely difficult. This was because these items came from every single uncommon boss in Line Canyon. According to the number of materials requested, even if these items dropped from the boss 100% of the time, they would still have to face the hidden boss dozens of times. Just look at Ye Xiu's 2 days of dungeoning. He ran the dungeon for a total of 6 times, yet he hadn't met a single hidden boss. If he had to gather the materials by himself, even if he cleared Line Canyon until he couldn't get experience from the dungeon anymore, he still wouldn't be able to gather all of them. And in order to get the Scarlet Berserker Blade, a player would have to first be lucky enough to meet the hidden boss. He then would have to get lucky enough for the orange weapon to drop. The Amber Crystal was even more troublesome. Wild bosses couldn't simply be cleared. They had to be stolen through PK. The first kill on Desolate Land and Line Canyon's wild boss had already been completed. These 2 kills were both done when Ye Xiu wasn't online, which was why no one had asked him to participate. One of these kills was stolen by Herb Garden, while the other was done by the Tyrannical Ambition. But just thinking about how much they had put in to get this far made his heart ache. No matter how fierce the fight for dungeon records were, there was no way it could compare with the type of direct PvP needed for the wild boss. After calculating everything, Cold Knight almost coughed up blood. He didn't even want to think about the price of these items. Even gathering them was strenuous enough for him. Their guild had already begun clearing Line Canyon for some time. They had already gathered enough Scarlet Scorpion Tails and Scarlet Stingers, but they hadn't found a Scarlet Berserker Blade yet. They were still rather far from 40 threads of Sandworm Silk, and the Amber Crystal was even more of a dream. Let alone Tyrannical Ambition, no one in the entire 10th server had won yet. Wild bosses could only be cleared 3 times a week. This list of items was clearly not the marked price for his substitution anymore. It was truly much higher. "Brother, you're too savage." Haggling over the price was a must. Cold Knight restrained himself and calmly negotiated with Ye Xiu. Even though his previous impression of this person wasn't bad, a feeling of grief and anger rose in his heart now. Cold Knight felt as though he had been negotiating with a kidnapper. The hostage was the record. If you didn't agree to my conditions, then I'm going to clear your record. But after negotiating for a while, the other side didn't seem to have any intentions of easing up. Cold Knight was still discussing gloomily when a system message suddenly popped up. Blue River had come online. Cold Knight's heart shook. He suddenly had an idea. "Old Blue," Cold Knight called. "Yeah." "Which record are you guys planning to set?" Cold Knight asked. "What?" He had to be wary against opponents. They couldn't throw away their caution even though tyrannical ambition and them weren't archenemies like Herb Garden. Blue River was on guard. "Let's communicate this well. Wouldn't it mean that we'd have to beat each other if both of us clear desolate land? This isn't the time for us to fight," Cold Knight said. "You're right." "Then beaten by Lord Grim," Cold Knight said. I don't think he'd do that." "In this situation, do you think someone's going to look for him to set a record?" Blue River said. "If no one asks him, then what if he himself goes to set it?" Cold Knight said. "Sets it himself?" Blue River froze. If Lord Grim said it himself? That was also a possibility. They only needed one more person for their team. And in addition, the other side had a fifth member they could use. They had previously seen the fifth person. Among them was that Blade Master who was still in their guild. It was just that they never saw him online ever again, making Blue River feel very puzzled. If no one goes to ask him, why would he put in an effort to do that? Blue River said. If no one asks, how could he be satisfied? Cold Knight discovered that Blue River was a little thick. Everything was already laid out for him. Was he still not able to think of Lord Grim kidnapping the record? But with this, Blue River finally got it. "So you're saying—" "I had been talking with Lord Grim just before, and in the end that guy said that not touching the record required a fee." Cold Knight informed Blue River of this startling news. "Did he really say that?" Cold Knight directly copied the list of items Lord Grim had given him and sent it over. This list had too much of an impact, making Blue River feel a wave of heat. "But do you think he'll be able to beat our record?" Blue River replied. They were also experts. Actually, they also had an estimate of what the limit for the record was. No matter how skilled a player was, as long as they hit the limit, that player wouldn't be able to beat it. "You look at Boneyard's record," Cold Knight said. Blue River stared blankly. Boneyard's record really was a legend. That record was simply inconceivable. "According to you, then even if we wanted to set a dungeon record, we'd have to see what he's up to. If not, then there's no point in obtaining a record," Blue River said. "That's what I feel. That would mean that he'd become an enemy to all of the guilds. Can everyone endure that?" Blue River said. "I don't know about that, but I do know that right now, the only way for us to pass this wall is to break our way through." Cold Knight said. The King's Avatar, Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 166, Chapter 166. "I get a little lonely sometimes too." Blue River and Cold Knight weren't wrong. If Lord Grim continued with his kidnapping of the record, then the matter wouldn't just be between him and both of their guilds. The big guilds would unify and propose a way to resolve the issue, whether that was by bribing him or by killing him. But at the moment, the crisis was only between their guilds. Even if the other guilds knew about Lord Grim's snatching nature, they wouldn't come out and help them immediately. They would watch them struggle first. If the two guilds actually fell, then that'd be great news for them. "What do you plan on doing?" Blue River asked Cold Knight. "I don't know. I wanted to see what you were thinking," Cold Knight said. Blue River hesitated. Should he pay the ransom or fight against the kidnapper and compete for the records from now on? Blue River had already clicked on Lord Grim's name several times, but he hesitated each time. Record-related matters weren't trivial. If they were, then he wouldn't have went over to consult Changing Spring. But since he had just gone to see him, if he went back again, It'd make him seem less capable. Poplar Beach and his gang would definitely mock him for that. But if they knew that he went to pay the ransom, then Poplar Beach and his gang wouldn't say anything good about that either. Requesting help from the headquarters had already made him look shameful. In all of the new server's history, such a situation had never occurred before. For all the previous times, the experts that had been sent used their own strength to start anew. This time, he definitely couldn't pay the ransom. Blue River made a decision. He had to demonstrate his worth. I've decided to set the record first and then worry about the rest later. Blue River didn't click on Lord Grimm's name and instead sent a message to Cold Night. "Oh, you're going to ignore Lord Grimm's actions," Cold Night said. "Yes. Okay. I hope that everything goes smoothly," Cold Night said, but he still felt a bit of uncertainty within his heart. Was Blue River really going to set the record, or was he just saying that to avoid giving me a bargaining chip? After all, if word came out that they had paid the ransom to Lord Grimm, it would also hurt their reputation. Which is why when he discussed matters with Blue River, Cold Night didn't say what he had decided on doing. When talking with other guilds, they had to always be on guard. After verifying Blue River's attitude on the matter, Cold Night decided to hold back his troops for now. In any case, they still needed some time to prepare for the Line Canyon record. For today, at least, it was impossible for them to do it. The day gradually brightened. Being Suma Cheng's pillow for the entire night, Ye Xiu's shoulder had become sore long ago. But once he heard the quiet snoring, Ye Xiu knew Suma Cheng had really fallen asleep. However, it was almost 7 o'clock. Some of the customers at the internet cafe had already tidied up and were ready to leave. It was almost time for a shift change as well, so there was no way for them to continue staying here like this. Hey. Ye Xiu turned his head and said, "It's time to wake up." "What time is it?" Suma Cheng asked drowsily. 6:50, Ye Xiu said. "It's not even 7 yet, another 10 minutes, Suma Cheng said, and even shifted her head to a more comfortable position. "Hurry up, I still have to take care of the customers who are getting ready to leave. You were lucky today. No one came to buy food at night," Ye Xiu said. Usually, if anything happened to the machine or if the customers wanted something to eat or drink, it was his responsibility as the manager to take care of it. But it had been particularly peaceful today. It seemed as if everything magically went well for the all-night customers, allowing Suma Cheng to get a good night's rest. "Really? Then I really am lucky." Suma Cheng finally lifted her head. She rubbed her eyes and constantly yawned. "Cover up well. The customers are coming over," Ye Xiu said. "Oh." Suma Cheng wrapped herself up like when she first arrived. Her appearance right now wasn't too revealing. Everyone was about to leave now. Suma Cheng left the receptionist's desk and watched as Ye Xiu helped the customers log out. Some of the customers who weren't leaving yet paid to continue using the computers. All night had its own price, while the morning had a different price. "Brother Yi." At this moment, the cashiers and managers with the morning shift arrived. Most of them lived close to each other, so they all ate and walked over together. "Almost done." Ye Xiu called out to them. He quickly finished up and left the receptionist's desk. The morning shift took over. Ye Xiu's workday was done. "What would you like to eat?" Ye Xiu asked Suma Cheng. "Anything is fine." Suma Cheng clearly wasn't fully awake yet. She still looked a bit drowsy. "Okay, then it'll be the usual," Ye Xiu said. The two of them left the internet cafe together. Chen Guo had gotten up early today. As she went downstairs, she happened to see Ye Xiu leave the internet cafe with a girl. Her first thought that the girl was Tang Ru, but after getting a better look, she could tell that the girl wasn't her. She had lived with Tang Ru for a long time, so she would be able to recognize her just from a rear view. "Who is she?" Chen Guo ran over to ask others. Everyone shook their heads. Ye Xiu hadn't introduced her to them. "Little Tang." Chen Guo turned around and called out to see if Tang Ru was there. Tang Ru was there, but she was in the middle of playing a game, so she couldn't hear her with headphones on. But since she sat in the same place every day, Chen Guo quickly grabbed her. You woke up very early today. Tang Ru turned around and saw Chen Guo. Yeah, Chen Guo replied and then directly asked, who's that sister together with Ye Xiu? Together. Tang Ru heard this and took a look at the receptionist's desk. They already left. They left just as I came down. Who is she? Chen Guo said. I don't know her actual name, but she's a girl that dungeons with us every day. Tang Ru said. An online friend. Chen Guo was shocked. Those two know each other, I think. Tang Ru had seen Sima Cheng sleep on Ye Xiu's shoulders. Anyone could tell that the relationship between them wasn't ordinary. But she wasn't a gossipy person, so she didn't ask about it. She didn't want to assume that there was a relationship between those two. Online friends shouldn't be so close, which meant that they knew each other very well. So this guy can seduce a girl too. Chen Guo expressed her lament. What does she look like? I don't know, I couldn't see her properly, Tang Ru said. What were you doing the entire night then? Chen Guo expressed her discontent with Tang Ru. Tang Ru helplessly laughed. What do you want to eat? Chen Guo asked. I'll eat whatever you're going to eat. It's not like I have any money. Sigh. Tang Ru also acted shamelessly sometimes. Wait here. Chen Guo rolled her eyes and left. She took care of food and shelter, but because she didn't have any standards, most of the time she would just decide what everyone ate on the spot. Sometimes she would be in a good mood and would invite everyone over for a big meal. Those that were there during those times always felt very lucky. The area around Happy Internet Cafe had quite a few restaurants. Chen Guo naturally had places she frequently went to. After ordering wontons, steamed buns, porridge, and a bunch of other random dishes, she even looked around trying to catch their affair but wasn't able to find anything. When she returned with the breakfast, she didn't see Ye Xiu. She called for Tang Ru to come and eat. She saw Ye Xiu come back with a cigarette in his mouth once they were halfway done. Whoa. Boss, you woke up early today, Ye Xiu greeted Chen Guo. What about that girl that was with you? Chen Guo didn't even try to ease into the subject. She just straight up asked him. She went back. Ye Xiu replied calmly. HMPH, you can't mix up work with your social life. Chen Guo said. Wow, wontons, give me a bowl, Ye Xiu said as he completely went off topic. Didn't you go and eat already? Chen Guo said. I had to pay for that myself, so I ate less. Ye Xiu said. Shameless. Chen Guo ground her teeth. There's none for you. Really? Then I'm going to bed. Ye Xiu ran off. Chen Guo was baffled. She still wanted to continue prodding. Why did he have to run off? Ha ha ha, Tang Ru laughed on the side. What are you laughing at? Chen Guo glared at her. Nothing, Tang Ru didn't explain. You're becoming more and more like him. Chen Guo wasn't happy. No way. All you do is play games every day, and you also have that weird aura. How long has it been since you've went out and been in the sun? Chen Guo said. Okay. I'll take a walk with you on the weekends. Is that good enough? Tang Ru said. Fine. Chen Guo was satisfied. She had lived with her for almost 2 years, so Tang Ru had already become her close friend. She was the one who kept egging her on to play glory. And now that she had succeeded, she discovered that the time they spent together had actually lessened. In the beginning, Chen Guo thought about whether or not she should level a low-level account and play with them. If Tang Ru or Ye Xiu had brought it up, she would have definitely done it. But those two only minded their own business. There was no way they would have thought of her this much. In the end, after pondering about it for a while, she discovered that those two's levels had already gone up. If she started leveling, then she'd have to start from the beginner village, so she threw away that idea. After all, she had played with chasing haze for so long that she was very attached to it. If someone told her to give it up, she definitely wouldn't be able to. The only reason she wanted to go to the new server was to play with those two. After they got to the heavenly domain, she would definitely switch back to her main account. The way she saw it, it was already too late to start from the new server, so it'd be better to just wait for those two to reach the heavenly domain. Although Chen Guo didn't say it, she really did feel a little lonely nowadays. Whether that was in the game or outside of it, she felt a bit lonely. "I'm full. I'm going to sleep." Tang Ru finished her breakfast and got up to leave. "Go ahead." Chen Guo waved her hands and shooed Tang Ru away. She sat there by herself with a bowl of porridge and gazed out towards the empty internet cafe. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 167. Chapter 167. Taking back the record at 3 o'clock in the afternoon during Tang Ru's afternoon shift. The two had once again sat by themselves in front of their computers. Tang Ru had decided to give up playing the game during her shift and decided to look over guides instead. Ye Xiu, on the other hand, went to the smoking area to try and find a computer. One time, when Chen Guo was bored, she secretly made some calculations. If she charged Ye Xiu according to the internet cafe's usual fees, then Ye Xiu would be paying twice the salary he gets. Chen Guo had managed the internet cafe for so many years, but this was the first time she had seen anyone utilize the internet cafe employee benefits to such a level. Tang Ru was a close second, and she had an even greater desire to take advantage of them than Ye Xiu did. This sister was busiest during the afternoon shift. She practically had no time to play the game, so she asked Chen Guo to move her to the all-night shift. Chen Guo tried very hard to put it off. In-game, the Blue Brook Guild was preparing for their record-setting run when Blue River suddenly saw a notification that Lord Grimm had come online. He immediately felt a great deal of pressure. It wasn't a coincidence that they would be on at the same time. Blue River and his group often played the game all night too. Their resting schedule was practically the same as Ye Xiu's. In fact, they had only come online moments ago. Blue Brook Guild naturally understood the importance to this battle. After changing Spring arranged for who would go, he called several players to work together and explore the dungeon. Desolate Land was a dungeon that these Heavenly Domain players hadn't run in a long time, so they had to take some time to familiarize themselves with it. After doing that, they all went to borrow their provided account cards. Changing Spring had personally brought over 3 experts to the 10th server. Blue River wasn't using his own account right now. His character had already leveled past Desolate Land's level limit, so it couldn't be used to set the record. These account cards had just been obtained the previous day. This meant that the characters hadn't used any of their entries for Desolate Land yet. None of the experts had shown any signs of unfamiliarity with the dungeon on their first run. They were, after all, experts. Blue River was the one who was most familiar with the dungeon as he had entered it the most recent. As a result, he was appointed as the leader. They were able to achieve a time of 29:21:45 with just a few small mistakes. They had beaten their previous record. The experts that came over to help were extremely effective. Blue River made a major mistake on their second run. The mistake affected their final time, which was 33:54:89. This run ended quite poorly. Even if they stretched out the leaderboards, it wasn't even fast enough for them to be placed in the top 20. Sorry. Blue River apologized to everyone. Their poor performance was all because of his mistake. The more experienced experts knew that due to mistake, there was no way for them to set the record this time. As a result, they played more carelessly and listened to Blue River's constant apologies. They were all old friends, so no one said anything. They couldn't guarantee that they wouldn't make a mistake either. "This is our last run for today. We can do it, everyone," Changing Spring said. "Sigh, this is unexpected. After leaving the normal servers for so many years already, to think I'd have to come back and try so hard for this dungeon again," someone said. "Me too. I suddenly feel a bit nostalgic speaking about this," another player followed. "Blue Bridge, hurry up and get to the Heavenly Domain. It's been so long since we've dungeoned together." The current 5-man team was Blue Brook Guild's strongest combo. The guild leader Changing Spring, Ice of Dawn, Chilling Nightfall, Flying Brushstroke, and Blue River's main account Blue Bridge Spring Snow were Blue Brook Guild's 5 greatest experts. Changing Spring had gathered these experts to dungeon in the 10th server, leaving even Poplar Beach unable to object. The players' strengths wouldn't lose out to Poplar Beach in any way. In the guild, they were also considered seniors. Their dispatch meant that Blue Brook Guild was using their greatest strength to fight. Even if Poplar Beach was confident that he was better than Blue River because of what their team signified, there was no way he'd be able to switch in for Blue River. "This is our last run for today. We can do it, brothers," Blue River said, and then took a deep breath. He was even more pressured than the other 4. This record was closely related to his guild's power in the 10th server, but once he thought of Lord Grimm, Blue River couldn't calm down. He was always worried that their record wouldn't be good enough, and that it would be stepped on by Lord Grimm again. "Calm down, be cool, concentrate." Blue River kept on repeating these words to himself as he entered Desolate Land for their 3rd run. Changing Spring was a berserker, Dawn of Ice was a summoner, Chilling Nightfall was an elementalist, Flying Brushstroke was a spitfire, and with Blue River's Blade Master, their team was a full DPS team without an MT or a healer either. Even though their skill level couldn't be compared to pro players, they were definitely at the peak of normal players. For a low-level dungeon like Desolate Land, even though they weren't using their main accounts, they were still confident with rolling through the dungeon using their full DPS team. Only this type of DPS team could take the final record. For example, in their previous record for Desolate Land, even though they didn't have an MT, they still had Bound Boat's Cleric. Because of this, their DPS was brought down as opposed to Lord Grimm's team, which was full DPS. As a result, it was clear that if they didn't use a DPS team too, then there would be no way to compete with Lord Grimm. This was why Blue River needed the help of experts from the Heavenly Domain. 3rd try. Everyone's spirit was at their peak. They had made mistakes in their last 2 runs, but this time they were going to put an end to that. Everyone put in 100% of their effort and pushed on and on. The first boss fell. The second boss fell. The rest of the way went by smoothly after they had cleared out the monsters. Their current performance was definitely worthy of being praised. However, they had understood very well about Boss Toya's style. Stealing time from Toya needed a bit of luck. This boss had too many skills. Who knew what he would do when they faced off against him? There wouldn't be a set time without a good strategy. Many wanted to restrict Toya, but at level 30, they didn't have enough skills. So their only choice was to use coordination, but coordinating against such a complicated boss needed both time and practice. Due to this, the difficulty of fighting this boss increased. But this was only a low-level dungeon. Many players would only play here for a bit and then move past this stage. Who would take the time to research it? This was why restricting Toya was still just a theory. The expert team of 5 hadn't trained together for any sort of coordination, which meant that they hadn't thought of that type of theory. These players were just using the usual strategy. They would attack and then rely on themselves to push down Toya. The battle flew by, and the remnants of the battle was displayed on the castle walls and in the rear garden. Sword lights, bullets, magic, and summoned pets filled the garden as the 5 players surrounded Toya. At this moment, none of them could afford looking at the time. They could only do their best. Toya fell. Blue River didn't even get the opportunity to check the time when suddenly the system announcement popped up. Their Blue Brook Guild had finally taken down this Desolate Lands record, 26:31:55. "We did it." Those 4 were extremely happy, but Blue River didn't even think about relaxing yet. 26:31:55. They were only faster than Lord Grimm's record by a minute and a half, but Blue River clearly knew Lord Grimm's team hadn't reached their limit yet. Not only was their equipment lacking, but they also had someone on their team who was holding them back. Even so, their 5 greatest experts team was only able to improve the record by a minute and a half. This meant that this record wasn't completely unbeatable yet. Do you guys think it's possible to improve this record? After they exited the dungeon, Blue River asked them seriously. You think that this record isn't enough to beat Lord Grimm? Changing Spring said. Yeah, Blue River nodded his head. If we have to improve, then there isn't much we can do about the small monsters. It would all have to depend on Toya. If we are able to completely suppress Toya and be the first to act, then it's still possible to improve the record. Flying Brushstroke said. In any case, the record's already been broken and we don't have any more entries left. Right now, the whole world is looking at it. Find people to bring back our influence and clean our name, Changing Spring said. Okay, Blue River replied. They had prepared for this moment. Blue River called the guild and Blue Brook Guild's name immediately appeared all over the world chat. The topic today was a follow-up to last night's topic, which meant that the taunters from last night might not all be present. But Blue Brook Guild wasn't trying to attack these guys. They were only telling everyone, Blue Brook Guild doesn't need Lord Grimm's help to set a record. Blue Brook Guild actually did it. Cold Knight saw the record and then quietly watched the advertising done by Blue Brook Guild in the world chat. A minute and a half. For Lord Grimm, it might still be possible to beat that. Cold Knight's line of thinking was similar to Blue River's. It looks like we'll soon find out what exactly Blue River's attitude towards this is, and what exactly Lord Grimm will do. Cold Knight thought to himself. Meanwhile, Changing Spring and the others withdrew after setting the record. They obviously wouldn't stay to level these accounts. As for Blue River, he was in a more difficult position. He looked at their record and suddenly feared that Lord Grimm's name would appear in front of theirs. After the wave of fear, Blue River suddenly realized that Lord Grimm should have already used up all of his entries for the day. It wasn't midnight yet, so with this in mind, he felt at ease knowing that their record wouldn't be broken right now. It looked like the most crucial stage would take place from 12 to 2 o'clock again. Seeing Lord Grimm's name lit up on his friends' list, Blue River was in a conflicted mindset regarding whether or not to talk to him. After pondering over it, he decided to not talk to him after all. The record had already been stolen back. Lord Grimm, I won't come to an agreement with you this time around. Blue River encouraged himself with such thoughts. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 168, Chapter 168. Fire Witch Cashew. Blue Brook Guild's PR went quite smoothly. After all, the announcement of their new record was still there. The leaderboards could also be checked at any time. With the presence of this proof, there was nothing new players could criticize them for. New players also didn't have any sort of hate directed towards Blue Brook Guild. The reason why they suddenly raised a storm upon them was simply because Full Moon Guild's bragging made them feel unbelievably disgusted. The time slowly crept towards midnight. Blue River slowly grew nervous as well. From 12:20 to 12:30, those 10 minutes, Blue River stopped doing everything and stared at his screen. The system suddenly made an announcement. As soon as he saw the word system, Blue River froze. System announcement, please play the game in a healthy manner and take a break every once in a while. FCK, my hair almost turned white from fear. Blue River couldn't help but curse out loud. It was the system announcement that frequently came during the night to remind the players to take a break from the game. Of course, from a game company's perspective, they wouldn't want their players to stop playing the game. Years ago, players might have felt warm-hearted from this fake and insincere reminder. Only noobs would be tricked by this reminder. At 12:30, their record had yet to be broken. Blue River let out a sigh of relief. But then he immediately thought of something else. What if he didn't start at exactly 12:00? As a result, Blue River went back to nervously staring at the screen. Old Blue, you're not going to dungeon today. The team that Blue River played with frequently went over to ask him. I'm going. I'm going. If Lord Grimm was really going to break the record, then there was no point in worrying about it and wasting time. Blue River thought this way as he followed his team into the dungeon. However, he couldn't concentrate on the dungeon. He made numerous mistakes, and at one point he almost caused the whole team to be wiped out. Old Blue, how about I lead? Everyone was scared now, but they all understood why Blue River was so distracted. Okay, you lead then. With the switch, Blue River didn't make as many mistakes as he did before. Prior to that, he was practically leading the team to their deaths. After Line Canyon was cleared, it was as if half the night had gone by. There wasn't any new system announcements, letting Blue River finally relax a bit. Meanwhile, on Ye Xiu's side, they hadn't gone to set a record tonight. At 11 o'clock, Tang Ru changed shifts and began playing the game. They invited Steamed Bun Invasion and waited for Suma Cheng to come online. The four-player team then went a Fire Forest together. Frost Forest, Fire Forest, Gloom Forest, and Sunlight Forest were Glory's four large forests, which were also leveling areas and dungeons. Frost Forest was the lowest level one among the four. Fire Forest, which was the one Ye Xiu and his group were going to, was a level 34-36 area. As level 30 characters, level 35 monsters would give them the most experience. However, no matter how much experience wild monsters gave, there was no way they could compete with the elite monsters in dungeons. Plus, because of the end-of-dungeon experience rewards, running to the leveling area instead of to a dungeon was not the wisest choice. A veteran of the game like Ye Xiu definitely wouldn't make such an unwise choice. However, they weren't going there to level. Ye Xiu's goal was the Fire Forest's wild boss, Fire Witch Cashew. In Frost Forest, the strongest hidden boss White Witch was proficient in ice elemental magic. As for Fire Forest, the Fire Witch, proficient in fire elemental magic, was in existence even greater than hidden bosses, Wild Boss. The Wild Boss was always the highest level in the leveling area, which meant Fire Witch Cashew was level 36. Level 36 was 6 levels higher than Ye Xiu and his group's characters. They wouldn't gain much experience because that exceeded the 5-level limit. However, killing a boss wasn't something that was done to gain levels. Still, a 6-level suppression. This was a huge disadvantage for them. The current elite teams of the big guilds were level 32, yet even they didn't dare to provoke the Fire Witch Cashew. They were already scared of a 4-level suppression. After all, she wasn't just some regular monster. She was the strongest boss type, a wild boss. A 4-level suppression was already enough to make the players retreat. But Ye Xiu was about to lead his team to battle against this wild boss that had a 6-level suppression. As for the other three, they weren't scared at all. Excluding Suma Cheng, Ye Xiu felt a need to let them know that a 6-level suppression wasn't a joke. Everyone, note that there is a 6-level suppression between us and the Fire Witch, Ye Xiu said as they searched for the Fire Witch. The Fire Witch was definitely there. A wild boss would just wander around after spawning if it wasn't killed immediately. The 10th server had opened for 3 weeks already. It wasn't just the Fire Witch. Wild bosses from all other higher-leveled areas were already waiting for players to clear them. It was different from the first week, where the wild bosses hadn't spawned yet. Okay. Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion replied nonchalantly. Don't underestimate this 6-level suppression. Combined with her identity as a wild boss, a lot of skill effects will be reduced by 60-100%. Do you know what a 100% reduction means? That means a complete reduction, no effect. That's why during battle you're going to need to adjust. Dragon Tooth Stun, Sky Strike's Knockup, Sand Tosses Blind, and Bricks Dizzy, all of these will have a reduced effect on her, Ye Xiu lectured. Oh, so it's like that, the two nodded. Haven't we already encountered this type of situation in Line Canyon? Wasn't the boss there higher leveled than us? Tang Ru said. Yeah, it was higher level, but starting from level 30, normal dungeons wouldn't have level ranges higher than 3 usually. This is because a very high-level suppression is difficult to deal with. 3 levels is still manageable. If it weren't for that, then the level 36 fire witch would have been killed already. How else could we have gotten a chance to kill it? Ye Xiu explained. Okay, I'll pay attention to it. Tang Ru didn't dare to include steamed bun invasion with a we. Steamed bun, do you understand? Ye Xiu asked. Understood. Steamed bun invasion replied. Ye Xiu couldn't tell whether or not he actually understood. The four wandered around Fire Forest and sometimes killed a few of the monsters along the way. The monsters in all the 4 great forests were goblins. Their levels were different, so they would obviously be different from each other. The Fire Forest's goblins all had red skin with a bloodthirsty look on their faces. They looked much more fierce than Frost Forest goblins. Here, she's over here. Ye Xiu found the silhouette of the Fire Witch Cashew. In the middle of an open space in the forest, a large bonfire blazed. Fire Witch Cashew was standing crazily on one side. She carried an extremely long magic staff with a flame-shaped rune on top, which seemed to pulsate with the raging fire. Beside her, a large mob of small Fire Forest goblins were circling around the bonfire. They seemed to be holding some sort of a grand ritual. They were shouting and running around, but none of them left. What do we do? No one has touched it for so long that so many monsters have gathered, Sima Cheng said. Don't worry, we have time. Everyone has their potions, right? Ye Xiu said. Got 'em, the others replied. Ye Xiu had already told everyone to spend their money in Kanji City and buy mid-grade potions. Okay, then the 2 of you go run away. Ye Xiu said. What? Tang Ru didn't understand. You and Steamed Bun run. We'll destroy that bonfire. The enemies will crazily chase after us and then we'll counterattack. Ye Xiu said. Okay. Tang Ru's soft mist and Steamed Bun invasion ran off. Sima Cheng's cleansing mist immediately began to store up energy for a laser. In that instant, Ye Xiu lifted up his 1,000-chance umbrella and sent anti-tank missiles over. 3 consecutive anti-tank missiles and a giant laser beam shot towards that bonfire. The explosion splashed in every direction like a firework. The goblins shrieked and ferociously glared at the 2 of them. The Fire Witch also turned to glance at them. She raised her magic staff and chanted in an unknown language. The goblin's arms suddenly glowed with a red light. Tusk, tusk, the entire mob has flame chasers. The system is so shameless. Ye Xiu said, while having his Lord Grim aerial fire backwards. Cleansing Mist did the same. Although their movement speed was quick, it required them to repeatedly chain the same action over and over again. However, this wasn't a problem for pro players. While under their control, their speed wasn't much slower than a witch's low-altitude flight. The only weakness was that they could only fly backwards. Because of this, there were several things they needed to be careful of. For example, Ye Xiu was warning Sima Cheng, be careful, don't crash into a tree. If I follow you, then I won't crash into anything. Sima Cheng said, that's not true. If you made a mistake, then you'd be the first one to crash into a tree. Sima Cheng said, no, I'm afraid you'll crash into me. Ye Xiu said. The 2 talked as they aerial fired. It clearly wasn't anything difficult for them. One of them was in the front, the other in the back. They were both light and quick. The distance between those fierce goblins and them grew wider and wider, but the Fire Witch's movement speed wasn't inferior to those 2. She didn't need to use her legs to run. She simply flew in the air towards them. Give her something to play with. Seeing that the Fire Witch was closing in, Ye Xiu yelled. Okay, Sima Cheng said. The 2 flew backwards as they fired towards the Fire Witch. If this was a normal monster, then being repeatedly fired at like this would cause it to be pushed back. But to this Fire Witch, who was 6 levels higher, these bullets had no effect on her movement speed. A little bigger. Ye Xiu yelled as he fired 3 anti-tank missiles. Sima Cheng was slightly slower, causing their 6 anti-tank missiles to form a line. The 6 consecutive anti-tank missiles exploded one after another. The Fire Witch finally gave the skills some face and was slowed down a bit. But the effects didn't even last a second as she quickly began closing in again. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 169. Chapter 169. Skill, interrupt the 6-level suppression truly couldn't be looked down upon. The knockback caused by the 6 anti-tank missiles on the Fire Witch wasn't even equal to that of a normal attack on an ordinary monster. And that was even with the Fire Witch luckily being a mage type. She wasn't born with a sturdy body. If she was switched with a strength-type boss, then under the 6-level suppression, the 6 anti-tank missiles would simply seem like fleeting clouds. Ye Xiu and Sima Cheng obviously recognized this, which was why they hadn't placed very high hopes on it. They only needed to buy a bit more time. Even with this, though, the Fire Witch was still closing in on the two. As soon as they entered her attack range, she immediately lifted her staff and chanted a few words. The space around them seemed to suddenly split open. 2 massive fireballs formed and crashed down from the sky towards them. The Fire Witch continued to give chase as she cast the spell. Magic that required chanting usually couldn't be done while moving. But there was one exception: elementalists. After learning the level 30 passive skill mobile cast, elementalists were able to move while casting spells. Of course, their movement speed would be greatly reduced under this situation. Leveling the passive skill would decrease the extent by which the movement speed was reduced. However, even at max level, elementalists would still only be able to move at 50% of their usual speed. It still couldn't be compared with moving under normal conditions. Although the Fire Witch was a boss, she still had to comply with the rules of the system. Her movement speed had greatly reduced while she was casting those 2 massive fireballs. Ye Xiu and Sima Cheng easily dodged the attack and took advantage of the opportunity to widen the distance between them and the Fire Witch. The Fire Witch's AI wasn't very smart. She would first have to catch up to them before attacking. As soon as there was an opportunity to attack, she would cast a spell and slow down. Through this alternation, between her movement speed, Lord Grim and Cleansing Mist were always able to maintain a certain distance from her. The goblins were eventually left behind, so they gradually left the battle. The goblins were all normal monsters in the leveling area. They were completely unrelated to the Fire Witch. The reason so many of them had accumulated around her was because the Fire Witch hadn't been killed for such a long time. They all had their own way of deciding on aggro. At this moment, their targets were getting further and further away. Soon they could no longer see their targets, so the goblins turned around and went away to play. As for Ye Xiu and Sima Cheng, all they could was run around in circles. The boss also had a limited range for where she was able to move around. It wasn't possible to bring the Fire Forest's Fire Witch all the way to Frost Forest. Coordinates 1658, 1542. Ye Xiu messaged Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion. With the way he and Sima Cheng retreated while attacking, it appeared as if they were kiting the Fire Witch. However, the two of them weren't able to chain their attacks too closely. In addition, the boss's life would still automatically recover. Even though the recovery wouldn't completely mitigate the damage they had done, or even if they had infinite mana, it would still take them more than a day to take down the boss. Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion received the message and quickly rushed over. When they got there, they saw that the goblins that used to be with the Fire Witch were already gone. Ye Xiu and Sima Cheng no longer needed to play tag with the Fire Witch anymore, so they began hunting her down. "We have arrived," Steamed Bun Invasion announced. He himself hadn't arrived yet, though his brick had. The flying brick smashed into the back of the Fire Witch's head. The Fire Witch seemed to have been stunned for a bit, but she instantly recovered. "Look carefully before using it." Dizzy won't have much of an effect on her, so only use it to interrupt her skills. Ye Xiu instructed steamed bun invasion. No matter how short the dizzy effect lasted, it was still a status effect. If the fire witch was hit while casting a spell, then the spell would definitely get interrupted. Of course, the prerequisite was that the dizzy effect activated. If it didn't, then the damage dealt from it wouldn't nearly be enough to interrupt her spells. You also have inject poison. Pay attention to how you use it. Ye Xiu reminded steamed bun invasion. Inject poison was a level 30 brawler skill. Even though the skill's name contained the word poison, it didn't actually have any poison effects. This skill had two effects. It could induce a bleed effect and it could also break super armor. The target could not be knocked down, launched, knocked back, or interrupted when it was in super armor. Unless a grab type skill was used, the target could not be moved forcibly. Inject poison was a skill that could get rid of this super armor. At its lowest level, the skill could dispel super armor for up to 5 seconds. At max level, the skill could dispel super armor for up to 10 seconds. Under the Fire Witch's level suppression, there was no way Inject Poison would be able to dispel super armor for a full 5 seconds. However, Steamed Bun Invasion could still hear Ye Xiu's instruction from before telling him that he should circle around the Fire Witch and be ready to use Inject Poison at any time. Whenever the Fire Witch attacked or cast magic, a red glow would emanate from her. This was her appearance when she was in a super armor state. In this state, the Fire Witch was unstoppable. Neither normal attacks nor skills had any way of stopping her movements. She suddenly opened her arms. Not only was there a red glow around her body, a fiery aura also emanated outwards, making everything around her go up in flames. Quite a few dried-up leaves also leapt up in flames. Meteor Shower. This was the Fire Witch's Aya spell. The spell summoned numerous meteors that would fall like rain onto the target. Inject Poison. Ye Xiu didn't have time to tell him what the spell was. As soon as he saw the Fire Witch raise her hands, he immediately shouted. Prepared, Steamed Bun Invasion heard Ye Xiu's command and immediately used Inject Poison. The Fire Witch took the Inject Poison, and the fiery aura emanating from her body instantly retreated. Steamed Bun Invasion was extremely shameless. He was afraid that he would provoke some sort of response. So after he used Inject Poison, he immediately ran and hid behind a tree. Why are you hiding? Steamed Bun Invasion's cowardly display made Ye Xiu not know whether he should laugh or cry. If Steamed Bun Invasion wasn't going to use this chance, then he'd have to make up for him. Luckily, Lord Grimm wasn't too far from the Fire Witch. He sent a sky strike and launched the Fire Witch into the air. Under the level suppression and the boss's innate defense, this knockup was only able to make the boss stumble. However, Ye Xiu quickly followed up with a falling flower palm, hitting the Fire Witch. After successfully interrupting the Fire Witch's meteor shower, Ye Xiu scolded Steamed Bun Invasion. Don't run. Once Inject Poison is used, you have to hurry up and interrupt her spell. This was supposed to be a chance for Steamed Bun Invasion to practice, but that guy had actually run away. I was afraid that she would have some sort of scary spell. Steamed Bun Invasion immediately replied. In the time it took to say these words, the Fire Witch had already recovered and returned to kill them. Tang Ru's soft mist went to meet up with her. 3 types of chasers danced around her. Besides the neutral chaser and the ice chaser, there was also a fire chaser from the use of falling flower palm. The fire chaser buffed her strength. At this moment, a layer of red magic fluctuations glowed around her arm. Her appearance with the fire chaser looked similar to the buff which the Fire Witch had given to the goblins earlier. Soft mist initiated with a sky strike. But the Fire Witch didn't budge as she had super armor. The staff in her hands whirled. The rune at the end of her staff brought forth flames as it moved through the air. All of the Fire Witch's attacks carried the fire attribute. This witch's staff was extremely long. The sweep it created covered a wide area. Steamed Bun Invasion, who was just about to go forward, was forced to retreat. Soft Mist, who was already in range, didn't have time to retreat. She hastily ducked to avoid the attack and then rolled, avoiding the streak of flames that came from the Fire Witch's staff. Su Macheng's cleansing mist was long-ranged, so she didn't need to get up close. At this moment, she fired a stored-up laser rifle. The laser rifle crashed onto the Fire Witch's body and seemed as if it would penetrate through her body. The momentum it carried was astonishing, but against the witch's super armor, it was only able to deal damage. The Fire Witch continued what she was doing and was once again about to cast a large Aya spell. Steamed Bun Invasion saw this and panicked. Inject Poison is still on cooldown. He hadn't finished talking when Lord Grimm rushed forward. He used a circle swing and stabbed the Fire Witch, throwing her and interrupting her spell. Grabs ignored super armor. Interrupting a skill this way seemed simple on paper, but a normal player would still fail 9 out of 10 times. The successful interrupt would only be because of luck. The boss's skills weren't so slow that you had time to see it, rush up, and then use a grab to interrupt it. When the Fire Witch cast a spell like the fireballs, the cast was nearly instant. It was practically the same as not casting at all. Even for large spells like Meteor Shower, if Steamed Bun Invasion was even a step slower, there wouldn't have been enough time to follow up with any skill after his Inject Poison. There was only a 1-second window and sometimes even less. During their battle against Frost Forest's Frost Tine, Blue River had a super armor break skill, Wave Wheel Slasher, to use against the boss's super armor skill. But why didn't he use it then? It was because he wasn't good enough. What Ye Xiu could do didn't necessarily mean that other players could do as well. Even for Tang Ru, even with her high hand speed, she still lacked in experience. If she had tried to use Circle Swing to interrupt the witch, she would have most likely failed. Too early and the boss would have simply gotten back up and recast the spell. The Circle Swing would then be on cooldown. Too late and well, the spell would have already been released and the Circle Swing would be interrupted. Lord Grimm was unspecialized. Besides Circle Swing, he also had access to skills like Back Throw and Wave Wheel Slasher, which could break super armor. He had the ability to continuously interrupt the Fire Witch's casting. Letting Steamed Bun Invasion use Inject Poison was simply a convenient way to help him learn. Fighting against this big boss with a huge level gap was to practice interrupting skills. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation. Thank you for listening to the story on KevinAudio.com. Chapter 170. Fire Witch First Kill. Interrupt. Interrupt. Steamed Bun Invasion's voice repeatedly resounded. This guy was always immersed into the games he played, and he would often shout out his moves like characters in early Hong Kong kung fu movies. His punches and kicks all carried whooshing sound effects. This type of constant shouting frequently disturbed the moods of the opponents he faced in the arena. But truthfully, Steamed Bun Invasion's dubbing had absolutely no meaning to them. For example, in this big boss battle, it definitely wouldn't affect the situation. Even so, he would still shout as usual. Ye Xiu deliberately gave Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion chances to practice, letting them have the opportunity to interrupt the Fire Witch. They were only killing a boss, so there was no need to worry about time. Because these two lacked experience, with the way they were fighting, there was no way a mistake wouldn't be made during the long boss battle. Not good. Run, Ye Xiu suddenly shouted. Tang Ru had been one step too slow in interrupting the Fire Witch's meteor shower. Ye Xiu felt that there wasn't enough time to rescue the situation, so he hastily warned them. Su Macheng's cleansing mist was already outside the spell's range, so she was safe. Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm used a shadow clone technique and left his fake body there, while his real body instantly escaped. The remaining players, Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion, were in a more difficult predicament. The two players were melee classes, so they were the closest to the Fire Witch when the spell was cast. The spell array took form, and the air above them began to boil. It seemed as if the entire sky had ignited on fire. Fireballs of different sizes swiftly dropped from the sky. Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion hastily had their characters run away, but it was impossible to completely dodge them all. The countless meteors showered down, and the earth and skies instantly turned into a sea of flames. When the two of them rushed out of the fire, they only had a sliver of health left. They miserably retreated to one side and began drinking potions to recover. Fortunately, the range of large AI spells such as Meteor Fall couldn't be shifted when the magician cast them while moving. If not, then the Fire Witch would have chased the two of them and they would have already died and returned back to Kanji City. "My bad," Tang Ru said. She wasn't someone who refused to admit her mistakes. She only wanted to improve. Pay attention to the timing. Ye Xiu didn't say too much. He had already indicated when they should act. Putting it into practice depended on them to grasp the timing. It all relied on the individual's reaction speed and judgment. Ye Xiu couldn't help them at this. The successfully cast Meteor Fall set the fire forest ablaze. After the Fire Witch shrieked and cackled several times, she continued to wave her staff at them. "Don't worry about it. Forward," Ye Xiu commanded. With regards to Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion, Ye Xiu wasn't letting them go and freely practice. For example, the two weren't at full health yet. If they failed to interrupt a spell again, then they might die. Ye Xiu would take up the task in this type of situation. He had a 100% chance of success in interrupting her spells with his excellent movements. Wave Wheel Slasher. This time, Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm used a Spellblade skill. The tip of the blade would lock the Fire Witch in a spell array and cast a wave wheel that would slash the Fire Witch multiple times. If there were any other enemies nearby, the wave wheel would also damage them. Once the wave wheel had finished spinning, it would explode and cause the target to fly out, similar to the Fire Witch, who was now on the ground. The battle continued. In this type of continuous battling, even top-tier pro players like Ye Xiu couldn't guarantee that a mistake wouldn't occur. So Lord Grimm also took some damage. The only player who hadn't taken damage was the long-ranged cleansing mist. The battle would last for hours. It wasn't one that could be finished in a matter of minutes. Time passed by slowly. No one in the 10th server knew that such an intense and difficult battle was going on in Fire Forest. 4 characters were hunting down the wild boss Fire Witch that was 6 levels above them. This was something no player could ever imagine. All of the guild's players were still running dungeons at a suitable level for them. The only wild bosses they were paying attention to were the ones in Frost Forest, Boneyard, Desolate Land, and Line Canyon. Fire Forest. In truth, it was about time. The highest-leveled characters currently were all halfway through to level 32. As soon as they had reached level 33, they would begin hunting down Fire Forest's Fire Witch. Line Canyon and Desolate Land were also done in a similar way. 100, 130, 200, 230. If they're running Desolate Land, then they should be done by now, no. Blue River and his friends had already finished running the dungeon 3 times. If Lord Grimm was going to set the record, then he shouldn't be so late. 2.5 hours had already passed, yet there were still no signs of any record being set. Could it be that Lord Grimm was also having a bit of trouble? It was only the first day, so Blue River didn't dare be too happy. He only let out a sigh of relief. He couldn't smile yet. "Let's go to Desolate Land," Blue River said. They had just run Line Canyon. But while they were traveling, a system announcement suddenly popped up. System announcement. Players Lord Grimm, Cleansing Mist, Soft Mist, and Steamed Bun Invasion have completed the first kill for Fire Witch Cashew. Amidst all of the random messages in the World Channel, this system announcement looked as if it was some joke made by a naive noob. Fire Cashew first kill. Those who reacted were, of course, veterans and experts. In the instant that announcement was made, Blue River froze. The four friends he was with had also frozen. At this moment, they all had the same reaction. They moved their mouse over to the World Channel and dragged the chat box to check the announcement again. Each player carefully and earnestly looked at it over again. Not a single word of it was misplaced. Fire Witch. Blue River didn't want to believe it. Fire Forest Fire Witch. Blue River wasn't the only one with this doubt. However, to these experienced Glory players, they were well aware that there existed only one Fire Witch in the game. No way. There were even a few in the internet cafe who cried out in alarm. The initial waves of the 10th server opening had already passed. There weren't many Glory players in Happy Internet Cafe who mainly played in the 10th server. Most of the all-night veterans were in the other servers, so they hadn't seen the news. As a result, they were obviously indifferent towards it. The few who did react weren't familiar with each other. They could only discuss the astonishing news with their friends in-game. Fortunately, they had completed the first kill late at night. If not, all of those in Happy Internet Cafe who had known that Lord Grimm was being played by Ye Xiu would circle around and watch him. So we finally killed it. In Happy Internet Cafe, Ye Xiu and Tang Ru both let out a sigh of relief. After the final blow hit the Fire Witch, her body burst into flames. Her mean and ferocious expression could be seen in the wisps of leftover flames. Once the flames died down, a few equipment and materials dropped. 3.5 hours. The four of them had been fighting the Fire Witch for a long 3.5 hours. It could be seen just how hard it was to beat a 6-level higher wild boss from this. Tang Ru's soft mist and steamed bun invasion had almost died several times. Su Macheng's cleansing mist was fine. Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm, on the other hand, was just playing around. Tang Ru could tell with a single glance that he wasn't trying his hardest. Not easy. Not easy. Let's see what she dropped. Ye Xiu said as he went to take a look at the dropped equipment and materials. Flame Stone. Yes, I'll be taking this. Ye Xiu picked up this material. Red Flame Staff, a level 35 purple weapon. Sadly, we can't use this rare item, so let's leave it for selling or for trading equipment. Ye Xiu looked over the second item. Red Flame Gown, a level 35 blue cloth armor. It increases fire resistance. None of you are cloth type classes, so we don't need it either. It can only be sold for money. The third item. Wow, Scarlet Moon Belt. It looks like someone's luck is good today. Take it. With this, your set will be complete. The Fire Witch dropped level 35 items. The fourth drop was given to Tang Ru. Even though she already had it, she could still trade it for the part she was missing. Fire Spirit's Ring. It also increases fire resistance. How useless. The fifth was also a blue equipment, a level 30 ring that increased fire resistance. These types of equipment were only useful against certain kinds of enemies. Under normal circumstances, there wasn't much of a difference between it and regular magic resistance. 4 equipment were dropped. A purple weapon too, not bad. Ye Xiu nodded his head in approval. Are we rich? Steamed Bun Invasion asked gleefully. We're not that lucky, Ye Xiu said. He then discovered that they all chose to give up on these items. Only Tang Ru had rolled for the Scarlet Moon Belt. Seeing everyone's trust in him, Ye Xiu didn't object. He picked them all up and then gave the Red Flame Staff to Steamed Bun Invasion. Selling it for 200 gold coins won't be a problem. You can use that to buy a set for yourself. Really? Awesome. Steamed Bun Invasion received it with excitement. The other 2 equipment, the Red Flame Gown and the Fire Spirit's Ring, were less important from a long-term perspective. However, players were about to hit level 33 at present. If they were going to compete in this fire forest, then fire-resistant equipment would greatly increase their chances of survival, so it was uncertain how much they would sell for. Okay, let's go back to dungeoning. Because of this first kill, the entire community was completely shocked. Ye Xiu didn't care though. As for Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion, they didn't really take the Fire Witch seriously. The 6-level suppression only reduced the damage they dealt and reduced their skills' effects. It made the battle very long, and even though they almost died several times from a mechanical perspective, the two didn't feel that killing the boss was too difficult. So easy. This was Tang Ru's final opinion on the matter. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 171, Chapter 171. If I can kill it, why can't I kill it? Real or fake? 10 minutes had passed since the Fire Witch's first kill was announced. Ye Xiu's party had finished picking up the drops, while the experts from the guilds were still going crazy over what had happened. 6-level suppression. They only had 4 players, yet they were able to beat a wild boss 6 levels higher than them. What type of skill was that? They lost a first kill. Right now, none of the guilds cared about this. They were acting as if they were normal players and paying their respects to these 4 players' strength. This worshipping lasted for 10 minutes. Only then did everyone return to reality. Lord Grimm, while we were setting a dungeon record, he ran off to kill a wild boss. What does that mean? After staring blankly into space for 10 minutes, Blue River finally spoke. Bound Boat carefully analyzed. If we continued with our previous way of thinking, then could it be that he was showing off his strength to us? Would the first kills for future wild bosses be in his hands as well? Blue River stared blankly. Guilds mainly used dungeon records to show off their strength. However, measuring a guild's strength like this was actually a more comprehensive measurement. After all, this was something snatched directly from fighting other guilds. The results simply proved who was the strongest. But now, they hadn't even begun preparing for it yet, and the first kill had already been taken. Besides this, the equipment and materials that dropped from wild bosses were items that every big guild needed. The existence of wild bosses were more important than the existence of any hidden bosses. The items dropped were much more valuable. Wild bosses only respawned 3 times a week. Even if the item they wanted dropped every time in 1 year, only 156 of them would drop. With millions of players playing the game, how could the value of such a limited supply of items not be seen? They have the strength to fight monsters over 6 levels higher than them. They only have 4 players too. Bound Boat reminded Blue River after seeing his blank stare. After level 30, leveling areas had a range of 3 or 4 levels. Possessing the strength to beat a boss 6 levels higher than them meant that Lord Grimm would always be ahead of them. It meant that he could first kill any wild boss that they didn't dare fight, yet simply because he had no opponents. Blue River immediately recognized how serious this issue was. Had Lord Grimm taken the wild boss first kills hostage as well? Blue River couldn't stay silent any longer. He finally decided to have a talk with Lord Grimm. "Brother," Blue River sent a message. "Here," Ye Xiu replied. "Congratulations." Blue River felt awkward when he said it. "Thank you." Ye Xiu obviously knew what Blue River wanted to talk about. Actually, at this moment, Blue River wasn't the only one who was messaging him. Many others had already begun feeling him out. Most of their introductions had started the same way. "Brother, you're so strong. You can kill the level 36 Fire Witch at level 30, Blue River said. "It wasn't easy. It took us 3 hours, Ye Xiu said. "Brother, what are you planning on doing in the future?" Blue River felt that this question came out a little weird, but he couldn't think of anything better. He had a weird feeling in his heart. He knew what he wanted to say, but he wasn't able to put it into words. "What do you mean?" Ye Xiu replied. Are you going to continue killing bosses like this in the future too?" Blue River asked. "If I can kill, why not kill?" Ye Xiu asked in response. Blue River suddenly realized what the crucial part of the problem was and why he wasn't able to put his thoughts into words. It was simply because of this reasoning. If you can do it, why not do it? An extremely ordinary reasoning was a reasoning that couldn't be argued against. If Lord Grimm possessed the strength to kill the boss, then on what basis could others stop him from killing the boss? Was it because if he killed it, they wouldn't be able to? What type of stupid reasoning was that? Couldn't this same reasoning be used for dungeon records too? If Lord Grimm possessed the ability to set a dungeon record, then why shouldn't he? Wasn't this the reason why the system had set up this sort of competition? If the big guilds needed the records to prove their strength, then Lord Grimm wasn't able to go set it. That type of logic was even more ludicrous. Blue River knew why he wasn't able to say anything. It was because Lord Grimm had always been doing what was normal to him. If it was any other player, they would also do the same. If they didn't, then they would be abnormal. Kidnapping. Or maybe Lord Grimm had other intentions. However, he wasn't being immoral. The big guilds wanted him to give up his rights to ensure their own benefits. Setting records and killing wild bosses were all rights that every player had. If Lord Grimm wanted to kill, let him kill. If he didn't want to, then he didn't have to. No one should control him. Right now, the big guilds didn't want him to kill, which was why he put up conditions. After, they said what he was doing was the same as kidnapping. That type of logic was simply unacceptable. If you can kill, why not kill? Simply put, Blue River was killed instantly. It wasn't just him. Others had also probed him out the same way. Ye Xiu had replied to them in the same exact way. They all had no response. Many guilds had already begun discussing this issue with each other. This wasn't some overt scheme. They were just sorting out a common issue. Lord Grimm's strength had been displayed for everyone to see. The circumstances were right in front of them. Lord Grimm wasn't doing anything wrong. Everyone could either ignore him or stop him. If they wanted to stop him, then they would either have to give him what he wanted or use force to suppress him. But if they used force, then he could argue. On what basis can you prevent others from setting a record? At this moment, Blue River felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted. It was better than before. After a short pause, he quickly revived and sent a message to Lord Grimm. "Brother, what do you think the limit for Desolate Land's record is?" Blue River felt that Lord Grimm wasn't unjust, which was why he asked this reasonable question. He didn't believe that Lord Grimm wouldn't answer his question. "Probably 2 minutes faster than your record," Ye Xiu said. 2 minutes. I don't suggest that you fight for this record. The key to this record is the final boss Toya. Against this boss, my unspecialized character had an overwhelming advantage over the other classes. Even if you guys practiced hard to suppress him, you guys will still be a bit slower. Why? Because we can coordinate as well, however you guys don't have an unspecialized, Ye Xiu said. Okay, it looks like the only option is to pay you to not act then, Blue River said. That works too, Ye Xiu said calmly. Okay, brother, what do you want this time? Blue River had already accepted reality. A list of items was sent over. Blue River wasn't surprised looking at it. He didn't hastily negotiate with him either. In any case, he calmly replied, "Let me think about it." Blue River went offline again and went to the Heavenly Domain. Heavenly Domain's Blue Brook Guild knew that Blue River wouldn't come over if there was nothing important to report, and it usually wasn't any good news. Seeing that he had appeared again, the 4 players who had set the record yesterday froze. The record has already been broken. The Spitfire flying brushstroke was the first to ask. For now, no, Blue River said. Then why'd you come back? To tell you Lord Grimm's conditions. Blue River said. His conditions, what does that mean? The conditions for him to not break our record, Blue River said. Blue Bridge, you're saying that our record would definitely be broken by Lord Grimm. Flying brushstroke wasn't too happy. He said that he could beat our record by more than 2 minutes. Do you think we can do that? Blue River said. You're going to believe what he says. Yeah, I believe him, Blue River said. FCK, Flying brushstroke cursed and sent a speechless emoticon. Changing Spring was too lazy to send messages, so he simply told Blue River to wait outside of the usual dungeon they went to. While Blue River was waiting, Flying Brushstroke had already reported the info to Changing Spring. When they met, Blue River could clearly tell that Changing Spring wasn't happy. "What's wrong with you, Blue Bridge? Do you actually want others to treat you like a joke?" Changing Spring asked. "If we don't ask Lord Grim to not act, then everyone will look like jokes. There wouldn't be any time to regret it because we wouldn't be able to get the record back," Blue River said. "Ha ha ha ha, Blue Bridge old friend, you're that scared of this so-called Lord Grim." Sure enough, Poplar Beach had taken the opportunity to taunt him. "I just have a feeling that he's not a bad person, so I'm willing to believe him," Blue River calmly said. "He's not a bad person. If he's not a bad person, then why would he go kidnap the records from the big guilds?" Poplar Beach laughed coldly. "The records don't belong to the big guilds. Where'd you get kidnapping from?" Blue River said. "Blue Bridge, you," Changing Spring, and the others all felt a little strange. Blue River's attitude was different from before. Blue River had previously been angry at Lord Grim, but after half a day it seemed like Blue River understood Lord Grim. Isn't that a solid reason? If you have the ability to set a record, why wouldn't you go and set it? "We can't beat the opponent, so this is the only way to take the record," Blue River said. "Who says we can't beat him?" Flying Brushstroke wasn't happy. "Blue Bridge old friend, but tell me the truth, are you colluding with this Lord Grim?" Poplar Beach suddenly interrupted. Blue River completely ignored him. He didn't think that Changing Spring would doubt him like that. Changing Spring had paused for a while before saying, "Blue Bridge, it seems like you've been working too hard lately. Relax for a bit. This time, hand this dungeon record matter over to us." "You're saying, let Poplar Beach substitute for you. The 5 of us are going to set the record." Changing Spring said the King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 172, Chapter 172. A well-thought-out long-term consideration. Changing Spring's decision startled everyone. Substitute was an extremely sensitive word. Everyone knew what Changing Spring meant on the outside, but on the inside, did he mean that from now on, Blue River's spot as one of the 5 great experts was going to be replaced? From a skill level point of view, Poplar Beach was superior to Blue River. Changing Spring wasn't the only person who saw this. However, the reason why the 5 great experts were great wasn't simply decided on their skill. Blue River was far more popular than Poplar Beach was. However, when Changing Spring suddenly announced his decision, no one approached him to inquire for more information. After all, they were only guessing. They didn't have the willpower to confirm that those were Changing Spring's actual motives. On the other hand, Poplar Beach and his group were, without a doubt, extremely happy. Although they didn't try to assert whether Changing Spring was raising their position, this was at least an important first step. If he replaced Blue River and set a stable record in the 10th server, which Blue River believed wasn't possible, then it would prove who was superior and who was inferior. His name would definitely become more well-known. In addition, Blue River's cowardice caused many to feel dissatisfied with him. He might even be able to win over the supporters of Blue River. Poplar Beach was excited. Just as he was about to go up and declare his position, he heard Blue River calmly say, "Lord Grim and his party, 4 level 30s without a knight nor a cleric, completed the first kill for the Fire Witch." "Is that why you're wavering?" Changing Spring said. "This is more proof of his strength, but more importantly, I suddenly realized that his actions are completely rational. Our selfish actions are the ones that aren't. From a neutral perspective, this is fair competition. Then us setting the record is fair competition too. Of course, but because we need that record, this isn't a good choice," Blue River said. "Good or not, we have to try it first. Blue Bridge, do you believe in that Lord Grim's skill more than ours?" Poplar Beach had trouble finding this chance. He was truly afraid that Blue River would successfully convince Changing Spring, so he hastily squeezed into the conversation. Blue River paused for a long time before saying, "Skill isn't something that a person can have just by believing." Correct. Seeing how Lord Grimm's group was able to beat a wild boss 6 levels higher than them, Lord Grimm is definitely more skilled than we are. Changing Spring said, "However, for a dungeon like Desolate Land, there's a limit to how much skill can be drawn out. I'd even reckon that if a pro team came to this dungeon, we'd be on par with them. If they can do it, we can do it too. Whatever they're able to do that we can't has no effect on this dungeon." "You're certainly right. Guild leader, we should go," Poplar Beach said excitedly. "Blue Bridge has to help you find a card first, no," Changing Spring said. "Oh, Blue Bridge old friend, sorry to trouble you." Poplar Beach laughed. He already had thoughts about showing off in the 10th server yesterday. He had already found an account in the 10th server to use. However, there was no need for him to use it. He might as well let Blue River prepare it. One last thing. Blue River wasn't done yet. Lord Grimm's class is unspecialized. This is a class that we don't have. It's an unknown variable. Even if it's a variable, why do you think that it's a disadvantageous variable? Poplar Beach replied back to Blue River this time. Even more so, unspecialized characters aren't something that Lord Grimm invented, right? They were invented way back then. If they really are more advantageous, why hasn't every dungeon record been set by them? Speaking of records in the record teams of every server, why aren't there any unspecialized characters, huh? If unspecialized characters are so amazing and can set records that others can't break, then why aren't they still popular? Poplar Beach really had done his homework. He had intentionally researched the dungeon records and record teams from every server. Well, it's true that unspecialized characters are from way back then. Blue River's explanation was clearly weakening. Some of the brothers nearby were unable to listen to him any longer. None of them understood why Blue River was being so stubborn. "Old Blue, just let it be," someone sent a message. "Let the guild leader and them try it out. We can fight it out first. If not, then there'll be other options." "Okay, it's settled then," Changing Spring finally said. "Blue Bridge, can you prepare another Blade Master? We'll go set it again during the day." Blue River had nothing else to say and could only agree in silence. At 3 o'clock, the 5-man team from the Heavenly Domain's Blue Brook Guild appeared once again in the 10th server. Except this time, the Blade Master was Poplar Beach. Flying Brushstroke and the others didn't say anything. They weren't happy about Blue River's stubbornness from the day before either and weren't happy about Poplar Beach either. However, Poplar Beach was indeed more skilled than Blue River. With him, the record they would set would definitely be higher. "Seniors, are we going?" Poplar Beach was trembling with excitement. "Let's go." Changing Spring didn't say anything more. They began setting the record as soon as they got to Desolate Land. It was just a low-level dungeon. They were also familiar with it, so there wasn't a need for a lot of leading. The atmosphere was heavy the entire time as they pushed their way through the dungeon. It was only when they got to the final boss, where they needed better coordination, did they begin to warn each other more. Even so, the heavy atmosphere didn't lighten up. It seemed like only Poplar Beach was full of spirit. The other 4 seemed somewhat spiritless. Their final time was still a bit worse than the original record, making them feel quite dissatisfied. "Seniors, if we just casually go at it, we'll break the record. If we just practice a bit more, we'll definitely break it." Poplar Beach wasn't discouraged and encouraged them. "You 3 come here." Changing Spring went to one side. He called over Flying Brushstroke, Chilling Nightfall, and Dawn of Ice. Poplar Beach was startled. It was obvious they were excluding him. What was this guy saying in private? Poplar Beach felt gloomy, but he didn't show it. He mindlessly attacked nearby monsters. He raised his volume to the maximum level and almost went crazy hearing the angry yells of the monsters, but he wasn't able to hear what they were saying. "What's wrong with you 3? Changing Spring's tone was serious. In the end of the three characters, one head turned left, one turned right, one looked up at the sky. This movement could be done by changing the camera angle. I say. You're not actually doubting Blue River, are you? Chilling Nightfall said with his head turned left. Nonsense, how could I do that? Changing Spring said. It wasn't like Blue Bridge's reasoning made no sense. Dawn of Ice said with his head looking up at the sky. I know, Changing Spring sighed. Was it just that you weren't happy with his attitude? Flying Brushstroke said with his head turned right. Stupid be-starred FCK off, do you think I'm you? Changing Spring said. Oh. In any case, this is the only step we can take, Changing Spring said. What do you mean? If we did as Blue Bridge said and chose to reach an agreement with Lord Grimm, then we'd be acting too hasty. If the news spread, what would the guild members think? With that punk Poplar Beach, things might become even messier. That's why we definitely can't suddenly come to an agreement with Lord Grimm, Changing Spring said. But why'd you replace Blue Bridge? Even if this was something that he didn't want to do, I believe that he would still go all out. That Poplar Beach looks so pleased with himself. I admit that he's a bit more skilled than Blue Bridge, but it's only by a bit. Flying Brushstroke was someone who wasn't afraid to say what his opinions were. Whether he was happy or not, he wouldn't hide it. A bit better is just one of the reasons. More importantly, we have to consider whether Lord Grimm really can break our record. With Poplar Beach, we've shut his group up. Later, if we ever have to make a negotiation with Lord Grimm again, they won't be as arrogant, Changing Spring said. Flying Brushstroke heard this and stared blankly. Chilling Nightfall followed. Then what if Lord Grimm isn't able to break our record? Then that means Blue Bridge was wrong. What else could that mean? Changing Spring plainly said. You, Dawn of Ice gasped. A well-thought-out long-term strategy, Flying Brushstroke said. That's why I'm the guild leader and not you. Changing Spring wasn't polite. Okay then, everyone cheer up. FCK, if Blue Bridge was here, he'd definitely be more spirited than you three. If we don't set the record today, then I'll have you guys squat here in the 10th server and never return. Ha 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 ha, we just need more practice for that record. If we don't set it this afternoon, we'll definitely be able to set it tonight. The four laughed and then headed towards the entrance. We're going. They called out to Poplar Beach. Poplar Beach was a bit puzzled. He could clearly feel that after their private conversation, their tone seemed to have changed. What happened? On their second run, the previous heavy atmosphere suddenly went away. Their communication cleared up as well. Their way through the dungeon went smoothly, yet there were still problems when they got to Toya. Even though they beat the record, they had only improved it by 5 seconds, far from what they wanted. DMN, this isn't good. We were only able to beat it by a bit. We haven't gotten the results we want and we're about to level up with the experience reward, Flying Brushstroke cursed. Besides getting a purple equipment as a reward, they would also get a lot of experience. What are you afraid of? There are plenty of characters for you to use. Continue setting. On their third run, they made a major mistake on a mob of monsters. However, none of them cared. Right now, they wanted to improve the record, and the only place they would improve on was their coordination against the final boss Toya. They had finished their 3 runs, but they hadn't gotten the time they wanted. These runs could be considered as practice. We'll go again at midnight. Right now, come with me to the other 9 servers and practice. You all have your account cards, right? Changing Spring said the King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation Chapter 173 Chapter 173. He's no good for dungeoning. Changing Spring was clearly taking this seriously. Blue Brook Guild had power in every one of Glory's 10 servers. Changing Spring had contacted the guild leaders of each server a while ago and sent the level 30 accounts to the 5 players. At this moment, they were going to begin in the 9th server. With 3 chances in every server, they began their slow practice. Every run would be within 30 minutes, which meant they could clear the dungeon twice per hour. From 3 in the afternoon to 12 at night, Blue Brook Guild's strongest team ran Desolate Land 18 times, making them feel like vomiting just at the mention of the two words, Desolate Land. However, the results made them happy. The coordination between the five of them grew better and better, and their ability to suppress Toya also increased as well. No one in any of the servers had ever placed so much value into researching Desolate Land. Starting from the 7th server, the 5-man team began to break records. In the 6th and 5th servers, they put the final record under Blue Brook Guild's name. Unfortunately, these were old servers, so not many paid attention to these low-level dungeon records. Rest for half an hour. At 12:30 we'll go back to the 10th server and set the record, Changing Spring said to the 4 other team members. At 12 o'clock midnight the dungeon entries in every server refreshed. They had been running the dungeon so much that their vision had become somewhat blurry. Resting was a necessity. They had to at least get some food to eat. While they were running Desolate Land, they didn't have any time to eat. After resting for half an hour, the 5 characters showed up at the 10th server's Desolate Land. Coincidentally, when these 5 players went online, they saw a character with the name Lord Grimm outside of the dungeon entrance with his team. The record had already been broken. That was the first thought that flashed by in Changing Spring's mind. He immediately opened up dungeon leaderboards and checked. The record they had set in the afternoon was still at the top. He looked up and saw that Poplar Beach was walking towards Lord Grimm. "You're Lord Grimm." Poplar Beach's tone was always extremely arrogant, always making others feel unhappy. When Ye Xiu heard this voice, he turned Lord Grimm around and saw the sign Blue Brook Guild next to the name Cloud Listening Blade. "Who are you?" Ye Xiu asked. "I'm called Poplar Beach," Poplar Beach said. A loud laugh suddenly interrupted. "Not only is this guy illiterate, he can't count either. His name clearly has 3 words, but doesn't Poplar Beach only have 2? Is he stupid?" Poplar Beach turned furious. Without any warning, he used sword draw. How could Steamed Bun Invasion not be able to dodge this? He jumped backwards with a whoa and without any warning, countered with a brick. Poplar Beach deliberately showed off his skill by immediately raised his sword up and used guard. However, Steamed Bun Invasion had quickly rushed forward after using brick and initiated with sand toss. Poplar Beach hadn't expected that Steamed Bun Invasion would be so quick. He hastily leaped backwards and rolled, however. Dodging this sand toss would be difficult. But as a player who dared to contend to be one of Blue Brook Guild's 5 great experts, Poplar Beach indeed had some skill. Although it was close, Poplar Beach was able to dodge in time. He immediately raised his hands and used triple slash. Triple slash was an upward, downward, and horizontal slash performed in quick succession, and was executed much faster than the speed at which normal attacks could be chained. Poplar Beach's dodge and counter was completed in a single breath, putting Steamed Bun Invasion as the one in the difficult situation this time. Steamed Bun Invasion hastily leaped back twice and avoided the first 2 slashes, but it didn't look like there would be enough time to dodge the 3rd slash. Poplar Beach was laughing in his heart when he realized that his 3rd slash had hit nothing but air. Steamed Bun Invasion had crouched to dodge the attack. Poplar Beach wasn't able to pull back in time. Steamed Bun Invasion got up and grabbed Poplar Beach's throat with a strangle. Level 30 characters only had so many skills. Steamed Bun Invasion had become extremely familiar with his class. With one hand holding onto Poplar Beach's throat, his other hand immediately used brick again, hitting the back of Poplar Beach's head with a whirl of his arm. Taking advantage of Poplar Beach's dizzy condition, Steamed Bun Invasion swiftly circled around to behind his opponent and uppercutted, launching his opponent into the air. Steamed Bun Invasion quickly followed up with a knee attack. "FCK off!" Steamed Bun Invasion shouted and kneed his opponent's back. If this was just a normal knee attack to the back, then Poplar would have only been pushed back. However, because Poplar Beach was in the air, Poplar Beach would be sent flying away. However, Steamed Bun Invasion's prediction was wrong. After all, Poplar Beach was an expert. He took advantage of the opportunity to quick recover. His character rolled forward and then immediately turned around to counter with a sword draw. By the time the sword aura had arrived, because it was so sudden, Steamed Bun Invasion wasn't able to dodge in time. In the end, he heard a crash. Lord Grimm's 1000-chance umbrella had opened up in front of him. The sword aura hit the umbrella without a metallic ring and dissipated. After blocking this attack, the 1000-chance umbrella immediately closed. Poplar Beach clearly wasn't happy with how Steamed Bun Invasion had kicked him. Right as he was about to rush forward again, Changing Spring's character blocked him off. On the other side, Steamed Bun Invasion wasn't happy either with how he had nearly been hit by the sword draw. He also wanted to go up, until when he heard Ye Xiu shout, "Steamed Bun! Don't be so hasty," Changing Spring warned in a heavy tone to Poplar Beach. "The previous sand toss you used wasn't good. Why were you so hasty in using sand toss?" On this side, the atmosphere was much lighter. Ye Xiu was lecturing Steamed Bun Invasion. "I wanted to take advantage of the fact that his guard was on cooldown," Steamed Bun Invasion said. "Guard only works against physical attacks. Sand toss is magic damage. You even know the cooldown for guard. How do you not know this?" Ye Xiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Oh, so it's like that." Steamed Bun Invasion felt unsure. He looked around left and right. They didn't have any blade masters on their side, so he looked towards the other side. "Hey, can you tell me what the description for guard is?" Poplar Beach and Changing Spring stared blankly. They were in such a tense situation right now. What type of question was this? In the end, they heard Steamed Bun Invasion say, "Oh shoot, I forgot. He's illiterate. He probably can't read the words. I'm going to kill him." Poplar Beach jumped out ready to fight. However, this time Ye Xiu moved his Lord Grimm forward, blocking him as he said, "Don't be hasty, don't be hasty. I don't think you're illiterate, but who are you guys?" Changing Spring, Blue Brook Guild's guild leader. Changing Spring's character went forward to speak. "Oh, Steamed Bun." Ye Xiu immediately warned Steamed Bun Invasion. He knew that Steamed Bun was definitely about to say that this person was also illiterate. "Blue Brook Guild's guild leader," Ye Xiu repeated. He had already figured out what was going on and laughed. "Are you here to set the record?" "Correct," Changing Spring said. "It must have been difficult for Senior to have come from so far away." Ye Xiu said. "It's all because of you," Changing Spring said. "Haha, I'm very competitive, so you guys are going to have to try very hard." Ye Xiu laughed. "It sounds like you're very confident," Changing Spring said. "How so?" "It was you who told Blue River that we wouldn't be able to compete against you, right?" Changing Spring asked. "I think so." "You punk, you're too arrogant. Do you dare duel me?" Poplar Beach shouted. Changing Spring calmly stood to the side and didn't stop him. "Blue River didn't come." Ye Xiu suddenly asked this random question. "No," Changing Spring said. "Then you guys should call Blue River over." Ye Xiu said, "If we're talking about PK, then this person is probably a bit better than Blue River. But for dungeoning, Blue River is more steady and would be better in terms of teamwork." Everyone heard this and stared blankly. They didn't know how well Lord Grimm understood Blue River, but they were certain that this was his first time seeing Poplar Beach. With just that short exchange, he could already see how skilled Poplar Beach was. "What are you saying?" "Fight me," Poplar Beach shouted. "See, he knows this too." Ye Xiu said to Changing Spring, "Let him go wild in the arena and let Blue River set the records." How could Poplar Beach take this? He drew his sword and rushed forward. Steamed Bun Invasion was about to welcome him, but this time, Changing Spring didn't just stand there. He roared, "Stop right there." Poplar Beach heard this and immediately halted. After staring blankly, Steamed Bun Invasion stopped as well, seeing that his opponent wasn't moving. He then heard Ye Xiu follow up. Correct, don't be hasty. If you really want to fight me, then you'd at least have to use your main account. Changing Spring, Flying Brushstroke, Chilling Nightfall, stared foolishly. To them, Poplar Beach was already a very arrogant guy. But Lord Grimm was even more arrogant. He actually dared to fight against Poplar Beach's main account with his level 30 character. That was a 40-level difference. Both being equally arrogant, Poplar Beach was someone Blue River could never get along with. However, it seemed like this Lord Grimm was someone who Blue River revered. They were still puzzled over this when they heard Poplar Beach reply back with a laugh. Smart. If you fight my main account with your level 30 account, then it won't matter if you lose. Do you really think I'd fall for such a stupid trick? I don't need my main account. I'll fight you with this level 30 account. Don't worry. I won't be bullying you with this low-leveled account. I'll borrow a random level 70 account to fight with you, Ye Xiu said. A low-level account bullying a high-level account. Everyone began to sweat. Lord Grimm had made low-leveled sound like an advantage, though. Good, where to? Poplar Beach asked. Up to you. We're going to go dungeoning first. Let's meet again later. Ye Xiu said. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 174. Chapter 174. A challenge ignored. Lord Grimm's group turned around and entered the dungeon as if nothing had happened. Poplar Beach was stomping his feet in fury. It was too late to prevent them from going. It only took them a few steps to enter the dungeon. Changing Spring was still calm. After watching Lord Grimm's team enter, the only thing he could do was calmly call out, "We'll begin as well." Okay, 3 of them answered back. Poplar Beach, on the other hand, clearly hadn't recovered yet. Poplar, we're going to set the record now. Focus. Don't forget why we're here. Changing Spring reminded Poplar Beach. Soon after, the 5 of them entered the dungeon and pushed through as they had practiced. However, Poplar Beach was still angry. When they began clearing the small mobs, the team's tempo was a complete mess. This guy clearly wasn't in the right mindset. Changing Spring, who had reminded him before they had entered, didn't say a word. On the contrary, Flying Brushstroke couldn't watch anymore and opened his mouth to remind Poplar Beach. But he had only shouted the name when Changing Spring interrupted him. Forget about it, Changing Spring said. Let him vent his anger or he'll continue playing like this. Flying Brushstroke stared blankly for a bit. After recalling what Poplar Beach's personality was like, he let the matter go. The other 2 didn't say anything either. Poplar Beach was completely out of sync with the team. Their advance through the dungeon was not going the way they wanted it to go. That Lord Grimm, did he intentionally provoke Poplar to affect our performance? Flying Brushstroke said. I don't think so. Chilling Nightfall said. Poplar being angry is just temporary. The competition for the record is different than the competition in the arena. If we're not able to do it today, then we can try it again tomorrow. We just have to find new accounts and do it. Do you really think he'll provoke us every time like this? Then what was the point of him spouting so much nonsense? Does he really think that Blue Bridge is better than Poplar Beach? Flying Brushstroke said. What do you guys think? Chilling Nightfall asked the other 3. Poplar Beach was on the field with them, so it wasn't easy to privately discuss this issue. In order to do so, they whispered to each other whenever they crossed each other's path when fighting the monsters. I think Blue Bridge's dungeoning is extremely consistent. However, if you said that Poplar Beach was worse than Blue Bridge, that wouldn't necessarily be true. We've worked with him for a day and we all saw how he performed. Poplar Beach coordinates well us too. It's hard to say whether or not Blue Bridge is better, no. Dawn of Ice, who hadn't spoken up in a long time, commented. But at least in this type of situation, I don't think Blue Bridge would be affected so emotionally like Poplar Beach is now, Flying Brushstroke said. Could it be? Chilling Nightfall stared blankly. He had blurted out what he was thinking, but had accidentally messed up and staggered behind everyone on Poplar Beach's side. He quickly swallowed his words. What were you going to say? The other four once again crossed each other's path. Flying Brushstroke immediately asked, "Could it be that Lord Grimm had provoked Poplar Beach in order for us to see what Poplar Beach's weakness was?" Chilling Nightfall said, "You guys are probably thinking too much." Changing Spring found the opportunity to interject. "How'd it get so complicated? From how I see it, Poplar Beach provoked them first and then the other side simply countered back." Changing Spring said. The three stared blankly. That was a very rational explanation. "Don't think about it so much and just concentrate on the dungeon," Changing Spring said. "Okay," the three replied. Their run this time didn't turn out well. They had reached 30 minutes. The gap between what they wanted and what they got was very big. After they exited the dungeon, Changing Spring didn't say anything. Poplar Beach wasn't an idiot. Changing Spring believed that Poplar Beach knew why their time wasn't good. Second time. Changing Spring announced dully. Poplar Beach's emotional issue had been overlooked this time. No one commented on it. This time, Poplar Beach had returned to his normal condition. However, they still made mistakes in their run. The record limit implied that their performance was flawless. A single mistake meant that the record would no longer be the limit. In a 30-minute dungeon, requiring that every person performed perfectly wasn't easy. Third time, everyone be more careful. Even though they made a mistake last run with all of their practice, they were able to suppress Toya with their teamwork. Their time was close to the 10th server's previous record. They all believed that if they didn't make any mistakes, then they would definitely reach the limit. "We can do it." Everyone encouraged each other as they entered Desolate Land for the third time. They had advanced flawlessly this time. They didn't make a single mistake all the way up to the final boss, Toya. This part was the most difficult part of Desolate Land, and it was the reason why the team had run Desolate Land 18 times. Against Toya, the five coordinated perfectly. In their second run, they hadn't made any mistakes here as well. They had practiced this part all too well. 24, 41, 46. When the record came out, the five of them let out a long sigh of relief. This was the record limit they had wanted. It was the highest record they could make with their current ability. If they wanted to improve it, then they would need better equipment. Even though Blue River hadn't participated in the dungeon team this time, he had done his work properly. When he saw the record come out, Blue Brook Guild immediately sent members to begin bringing up a discussion in the World Channel. They were naturally trying to repair the recent damage to their image. They had already done this yesterday, so this time, they were trying to nail it in and follow up their victory with another. Lord Grimm. "The record will be here. We'll be waiting for you to break it." Amidst the countless messages that popped up, this challenge came out. It was sent by Poplar Beach. Poplar Beach spammed the message over and over again, but there was no reply from Lord Grimm. In the end, when they looked over the recent messages in the world chat, they discovered that it wasn't that Lord Grimm hadn't replied. It was just that it was similar to Changing Spring's GFY, "Go FCK yourself," and was too short, so they had missed it. Lord Grimm's reply was a short 3 words long: "When I'm free." Seeing this reply, Poplar Beach spat out blood in anger. He continued to spam the message, challenging him to break the record, challenging him to duel him. This time Poplar Beach was on the lookout. He paid careful attention to the messages. Except, Lord Grimm's reply hadn't changed. It was still the 3 words, "When I'm free." Poplar Beach really wanted to smash his head into the screen to enter the game world and strangle Lord Grimm. But the reality was that it wasn't possible, so he could only stare blankly at the screen. "Should I go ask, when are you free? What if Lord Grimm doesn't give me face?" Poplar Beach worried. This guy is really persistent. He's been messaging for almost an hour already. In the internet cafe, Tang Ru said this to Ye Xiu when she passed by to refill her teacup with water. They had just finished running Desolate Land 3 times. They had used an hour more than Blue Brook Guild's team did. This was because Ye Xiu was teaching them a new strategy. The new strategy wasn't as efficient as the record for Boneyard, but was actually more difficult to carry out. Tang Ru felt that she wasn't good enough. She understood the preciseness of this new strategy, but because they weren't able to do enough damage, they weren't able to bring out the expected results. Tang Ru had a faint feeling that if they had a fifth player with them, then with the fifth player's firepower, they would be able to bring out the desired results. As a result, after finishing the dungeon runs, Tang Ru brought up Poplar Beach's spamming again. "Yeah, it must be tough for the guy," Ye Xiu said. "What are you doing?" Tang Ru looked toward Ye Xiu's screen and saw that he was checking out shops in the Kanji City market streets. "You're shopping again. What do you plan on buying?" Tang Ru asked. "Steamed bun and your sets are pretty much completed, but cleansing mist is still missing a few, so I'm helping her look," Ye Xiu said. "Oh, do you have enough money? I still have some," Tang Ru said. "You should save that money for potions," Ye Xiu laughed. "That, desolate land record. We should go back and take the record back," Tang Ru said. At this moment, the first 3 places in the desolate land records didn't have their name on it. And because of Poplar Beach's constant yelling, even if Tang Ru didn't say anything out loud, she was already on the verge of exploding out in her heart. "Of course," Ye Xiu said. "When?" Tang Ru asked. "When we get our 5th team member," Ye Xiu said. "5th member, who is it going to be this time?" Tang Ru asked. "One you've talked with before," Ye Xiu said. "Who?" Tang Ru was puzzled. "Ashen Moon, do you remember him?" Ye Xiu asked. "Oh, that person. I remember him. He was the worst of the bunch, but he was still better than me," Tang Ru said. Everyone in Team Tiny Herb had beaten her without any suspense. They were after all pros. "His name is Kyo Yifan. If we're talking about his ability to duel, then he isn't very outstanding. However, his true strength lies in his ability to work in a team," Ye Xiu said. "When is he coming?" Tang Ru asked. "Soon. If things go well, then he might even be here tonight." Ye Xiu looked at his friend's list. The Ghost Blade 1-inch Ash was online 24/7 these days. His level had shot up like an arrow, and he was now level 29, The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 175, Chapter 175. 3 chances waiting for you, Kyo. Yifan's 1-inch Ash Sword from level 23 to level 30 in a mere several days. This sort of leveling speed was even quicker than the Big Guild's 24-hour online routine. The Big Guild's characters were always at the front of the 10th server. You had to rely on yourself to resolve your own problems. Even though Ye Xiu and his group's characters were a bit behind, their situation was about the same. They were slower because they weren't able to play as much. The power leveling done by Kyo Yifan's 1-inch Ash didn't lose to the amount of play time the Big Guild's leading characters players had. For his character to level up so quickly, it was because his 1-inch Ash started later. The situation was similar to those in the old servers. A character in any old server would definitely level faster than one in the new server. The reason was simple. There were people to carry them. Even though the 10th server didn't have as many high-leveled characters as the old servers, for late starters like 1-inch Ash, there would definitely be high-leveled characters to help him. The reason he was able to fully utilize the quickest substitution leveling was because of this. Ye Xiu naturally knew about this. When he saw how quick 1-inch Ash leveled, he had figured out that the character was being power leveled. As a result, Ye Xiu conducted a special training in Desolate Land today. That's why after they finished their practice in Desolate Land, he urged everyone repeatedly to not level today. If they continued leveling, they would reach level 31. Once they went past the level limit for the dungeon, the record they would set wouldn't be accepted by the system. "I hope he'll come early," Tang Ru lamented while carrying her teacup back to her seat. In-game, Poplar Beach spammed messages in the World Channel for another half an hour, while Ye Xiu was just doing his own thing. Ye Xiu would sometimes glance at the messages. The ones he didn't see, well, he didn't see. He clearly didn't care about them. The night passed. They went asleep when the sun rose. Club Tiny Herb. Pro players obviously couldn't have their days turn into nights like that, especially for someone like Gao Yifan, who was on the verge of being kicked out. He didn't dare make any mistakes. He would follow the club's scheduled break and practice time. During daytime practice, he didn't dare get distracted, but once his free time came during the night, he immediately began researching ghost blades. He would look at guides, watch recordings, and even bought 2 ghost blades to experiment with personally. However, the character he was looking forward to playing the most was 1-inch Ash, because with this character he could be instructed personally by God Ye Xiu. When he thought of this, Gao Yifan felt indescribably happy. He hadn't been sleeping much recently, but he didn't feel tired. Every day he would sleep late and wake up early, yet he was still in glowing spirits. Even during the day, when he practiced his assassin, he would feel that his performance had improved a bit, though he didn't know whether or not that was because of his mental state. And today was the scheduled day when he would get his account back. In other words, this was the day when his 1-inch Ash hit level 30. He could finally go to the 10th server and look for God Ye Xiu for his coaching. In the afternoon, Gao Yifan got a little distracted and contacted the substitution leveler early. After confirming that there weren't any problems, he felt even more ecstatic. "What happened, Yifan? You seem really happy." During afternoon practice, his good friend Gao Yingji saw Gao Yifan's happiness and couldn't help but ask, Am I really?" Gao Yifan foolishly grinned. "Are you okay?" Gao Yingji extended his hand to touch Gao Yifan's forehead. "Nothing's wrong, I'm completely fine. Hurry, practice is starting." Gao Yifan dodged Gao Yingji's extended right hand. He retracted his foolish grin and sat down in front of his computer. But after a short while, the corners of his mouth began to rise up slightly again. This hadn't escaped from Gao Yingji's eyes. Gao Yingji obviously knew that his good friend was hanging on a balance and that he was under a lot of pressure. Even though he was the club's new star, reputed as the successor to God Jixi, he didn't have much authority. There was really no way for him to help Gao Yifan. Seeing how Gao Yifan's mood had been so unusually good, he was worried that something might have happened. When afternoon practice ended, Gao Yifan hastily ran back to his room. Gao Yingji wasn't able to find an opportunity to talk to him. As an important new member in the club, he would often have extra practice under God Jixi's instructions. Just as he was planning on chasing down Gao Yifan, team captain Wang Jixi had called for him. By the time extra practice had ended, it was already dinner time. Gao Yingji rushed to the club's dining hall but didn't see Gao Yifan. When he asked his other friends in the team, no one had noticed someone as invisible as Gao Yifan. Surprisingly, no one had an answer to whether or not he had come to the dining hall. Gao Yingji ran to Gao Yifan's room. Similarly, Gao Yifan wasn't there either. Gao Yingji felt that something was amiss and didn't know why his friend was acting like so. He didn't want to report it to the team captain, so he hurriedly called Gao Yifan's cell phone number. Gao Yifan picked up and said that he had nothing to do after eating dinner, so he had gone outside to take a stroll. "I'm coming back," Gao Yifan said to Gao Yingji. He had gone out to retrieve his account card. Even though he could have received it by mail the next day, Gao Yifan couldn't wait any longer. However, he couldn't let anyone in the club know about this, which was why he had to quietly slip away. Though for someone as invisible as him, it wasn't that hard. Who would have thought that his good friend had felt something was amiss? Gao Yifan felt somewhat moved, but he wasn't planning on telling Gao Yingji the situation. This was his own choice. It had nothing to do with anyone else. Even though Gao Yingji cared about him, he knew that Gao Yingji wasn't able to help him. If he kept on dragging Gao Yingji along, he might even cause trouble for his friend's future. By the time Gao Yifan had returned from picking up his account card, it was already 9 at night. Similar to how no one had noticed him leaving, no one had noticed him coming back. Just as he was about to open the door to his room, a voice suddenly called out to him. He turned around and saw Gao Yingji walking over. "Yingji, did you just finish your extra practice?" Caio Yifan greeted him. "Yeah," Gao Yingji replied. He then asked casually, "Where'd you go?" "I just walked around randomly," Caio Yifan said. "Did something happen?" Gao Yingji said. "Me? How could something have happened to me?" Caio Yifan laughed. "It's getting late. You should go to sleep." "I'll be going back," Caio Yifan said as he opened the door. "Oh," Gao Yingji answered back in this way. In the end, he was still an introvert who wasn't too good at conversations. He could see that Caio Yifan had something on his mind, but he didn't know how to ask about it, so he had been blocked out like this. Gao Yingji stared blankly for a good while. In the end, he could only let out a sigh and return to his room. Caio Yifan went into his room and turned on his computer. He immediately opened up Glory and logged into his 1-inch Ash account. When he came online, he saw Lord Grimm online and felt a wave of excitement wash over him. He cautiously sent a message. "Senior, I'm already level 30. "Oh, pretty fast," the reply was quick. "Let's dungeon together at night. Is going past midnight okay?" Ye Xiu followed up and asked him. No problem, Caio Yifan responded excitedly. "Good, do you still remember how to run Desolate Land?" Ye Xiu asked. "I remember," Caio Yifan said. "Good, but don't lie." "Our goal is to set this server's record." Ye Xiu said. "Really? Then I should go and review it again. If he was any other pro player, then he would have put Desolate Land as completely beneath him." But Caio Yifan didn't dare be negligent. This was his habit of being extremely cautious at work. "Okay, take a look then. We only have 3 chances," Ye Xiu said. "Why?" "Because besides you, after 3 more runs our team will probably hit level 31, Ye Xiu said. Caio Yifan checked the 10th server dungeon leaderboards. The 24, 41, 46 Desolate Land record made even him, a pro player, startled. "The record is really high," Caio Yifan said to Ye Xiu in astonishment. "It is. You could even said that it's the current limit," Ye Xiu said. "Unless they have better equipment, but for a new server their current equipment is pretty much at the limit as well," Ye Xiu replied. "Then what are going to do?" Caio Yifan asked. 3 chances. As long as you can assimilate into the team, breaking the record won't be a problem," Ye Xiu said. 3 times. Caio Yifan didn't have confidence. Confidence in himself was his biggest weakness. "Relax, it won't be a problem if it's you. I believe that you can do it, which is why I specifically left 3 chances waiting for you," Ye Xiu said. "Waiting for me?" Caio Yifan was startled. "Right, without your phantom demon, breaking this record would be really difficult," Ye Xiu said. "But I'm still not very familiar with phantom demons yet." Caio Yifan panicked. 3 chances should be enough for you to get familiar enough, at least in this dungeon. "Don't forget, you're a pro player too," Ye Xiu said. "You're a pro player too." These simple words should have just been simple words. However, Caio Yifan had never heard these words before. He was used to being invisible. He was used to always being a sub and never going up on stage. He was used to always watching enviously in the shadows as Gao Yingji was personally instructed by the team captain. Being in the champion team only gave him more pressure. While his other teammates were proud of themselves, he was always worried that he wasn't good enough to be on the team. "You're a pro player too." This type of assurance, this type of acknowledgement, didn't come easy for Caio Yifan. And having this coming out of God, Ye Xiu's mouth made these words carry even more weight. Seeing these words, Caio Yifan's pent-up grievances gushed out. Tears began streaming out from his eyes. He replied, determined, "I am. 3 times is more than enough." The King's Avatar, Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 176, Chapter 176, Problems in the Details. There were still 2 hours until midnight. Caio Yifan stopped being so sentimental. He told God that he'd be right back and then temporarily logged out of 1-inch Ash. He switched accounts in order to run Desolate Land in another server and do a quick review of the dungeon. As a pro player, he obviously knew how to run this dungeon. However, Setting a record meant that he had to understand both the details and the general picture. Caio Yifan began to study the types and patterns of the monsters, what route to choose when advancing through the dungeon, the characteristics and patterns of every boss. Caio Yifan used his main account to run Desolate Land 3 times. There wasn't anything wrong with using this account. No matter how borderline he was in the team, having been able to get on the team was already recognition of his strength. Although he was a bit worse than his teammates, he was still much better than new players with only strong mechanics like Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion. After familiarizing himself in those 3 runs, it was almost midnight. Caio Yifan switched accounts and returned to the 10th server. He then sent Ye Xiu a message and both sides agreed on where they would meet up outside Desolate Land. On his way there, Caio Yifan saw that there was someone in the World Channel repeatedly calling out Lord Grimm for a challenge. One of his challenges was the Desolate Land record and the other was a duel with Lord Grimm. Who is this guy? Caio Yifan muttered to himself. The dungeon record was another matter. After all, that could only be done with a team. And moreover, the record limit for low-level dungeons could be done by normal players as well. But a duel? This was a direct clash between the 2 sides' skill levels. To actually challenge God Ye Xiu so arrogantly, such a person made Caio Yifan completely speechless. Out of everyone he knew, even their team captain Wang Jixi didn't dare have this type of attitude in front of God Ye Xiu. The only person he knew who might issue such an open challenge would probably be Tyranny's Han Wenqing. This god had begun opposing God Ye Xiu ever since he joined the alliance. After ending Excellent Era's consecutive championship titles, the two became true rivals. In terms of mechanics, Han Wenqing was on par with other gods, but this guy was extremely aggressive. In addition, his personality was very direct and stubborn. If he ever saw any mistakes, he would immediately start shouting. Rumors say that after one of the matches where Tyranny had performed terribly, Han Wenqing furiously reprimanded the team. He repeatedly watched the recordings of that day's match. Every time he saw a mistake, he would immediately start cursing madly. At that time, Tyranny's boss had come to visit. Midway through, his cell phone suddenly rang and the angry cursing stopped. Han Wenqing turned his head and glared coldly at the boss. He said 2 words, "Get out." The boss gave him face and immediately ran out to pick up his phone. Tyranny's entire team was scared speechless. Even their boss had been roared away to one side. How could they dare talk back? Han Wenqing's behavior was like this as well. In terms of experience and skill, only he could compare with Ye Xiu. But now in game, some random guy was shouting at God Ye Xiu for a challenge. Caio Yifan truly didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. Outside of Desolate Land, Caio Yifan's 1-inch ash finally met with God's Lord Grimm. He also saw Tang Ru's soft mist, someone who couldn't be considered a stranger to him anymore. He had also met Steamed Bun Invasion before in the very beginning. Besides them, there was the Launcher Cleansing Mist. Seeing this character, the first thing anyone who knew about the identity of the person playing Lord Grimm would immediately think of Suma Cheng. She was someone who always stood by Ye Xiu, just like that launcher who always stood behind One Autumn Leaf. But now that Ye Xiu had retired, was this launcher still Suma Cheng? Caio Yifan didn't ask. Even though he was a member of a champion team, he clearly knew his current position in it. In the eyes of other teams, his existence was even weaker. His other teammates had fought against other teams, pro players, and had become friends. But Caio Yifan didn't have any opponents, so he didn't have that type of friend. "So you're here." Seeing that 1-inch ash had arrived, Ye Xiu greeted him. "We'll begin at 12 o'clock sharp." "Okay," Caio Yifan replied. He opened up the dungeon record leaderboards to verify the current record. But when he looked at it this time, he immediately felt that one of the team members on the leaderboards was somewhat familiar. Wasn't this the guy who had challenged God? No wonder he's so arrogant. That record really is quite good. It looks like he's an expert too, but it looks like he doesn't know who his opponent is, Caio Yifan thought to himself. Any problems with your equipment? Ye Xiu asked. No problem, Caio Yifan replied. When he bought the substitution leveling services, he had also ordered a set of equipment. The current 1-inch Ash had a full level 30 Ghost Blade set and was also carrying a level 30 Purple Takai demon-slaying blade. His accessories were quite good too. We won't be going for speed on our first run. We have a new player, so this run will be used to let him learn our strategy, Ye Xiu said. One time is enough. Steamed Bun Invasion was probably thinking of Full Moon Guild's guild leader. In the beginning, Ye Xiu had said the same thing, but that guild leader still wasn't very outstanding even after 3 runs. It'll be enough, Ye Xiu laughed. On the side, even though Caio Yifan hadn't replied, he could feel his heart boiling. Seeing that there was still some time before midnight, he ran to splash cold water on his face. He had to maintain his composure and focus. He couldn't let down God. They're refreshed, let's go. At midnight, the dungeon entries refreshed, so Ye Xiu led his team into Desolate Land. At this moment, Blue River, who was also beginning to run the dungeons, began to look anxiously at the messages in the World Channel. Poplar Beach's spamming often made him feel somewhat angry. He was only being so arrogant because he had participated in setting a faster record. This endless enthusiasm didn't seem like it was to prove their name, but just to create an unreasonable scene. This wasn't the first time Blue River had seen people do this, but the problem this time was that that character was from Blue Brook Guild. Everyone who saw these messages knew that. The Desolate Land records hanging on the leaderboards had their name on it. Not only did he have Guild's name behind him, he was also one of the experts on the leaderboards. Blue River felt that shouting on the World Channel constantly like this was so shameful. It wasn't as if Blue River hadn't warned him. It was just that once Poplar Beach received it, he would laugh at him and mock him. Blue River was feeling conflicted. He obviously hoped that their guild's record would be able to remain up there, but when he thought of how happy Poplar Beach was, he couldn't help but want someone to just step all over the record. Of course, the only who could step all over the record was Lord Grimm. Blue River was feeling somewhat uneasy. He had been paying attention to Lord Grimm's level. It looked like he had spent much longer at level 30 than one normally would. At this moment, Blue River and the others in the front were already level 33. The higher the level, the more experience was needed. This was why the distance between them was getting smaller. With how fast Lord Grimm had been leveling, he should have only been 1.5 levels behind them. But right now, he had stopped at level 30. The possible meanings this implicated was why Blue River felt uneasy, especially now. Blue River had received a message from guild members at Desolate Land saying that they had seen Lord Grimm's group with a new member called 1-inch Ash, a ghost blade without any guild. 1-inch Ash. Who was this? Blue River looked at their guild's name of lists. Last time, there was that Blade Master Flowing Tree who had only gone online for a brief moment. He couldn't help but feel alarmed. Meanwhile, in Desolate Land's dungeon, the newly joined Caio Yifan was employing the strategy that Ye Xiu was instructing and was beautifully coordinating with the others. Yeah, just like that. Pay attention to our attack tempo, the timing of your ghost boundaries and your cooldowns. Maximize the efficiency. Ye Xiu continuously instructed. Coaching a kid with a solid foundation really was a lot easier, unlike Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion, who had to learn the dungeon strategy by rote memorization. In terms of their understanding of the dungeon in reality, these two weren't even as good as Full Moon Guild's guild leader. Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion's mechanics were there, but they had to memorize the strategy and increase their game knowledge. As for Full Moon Guild's guild leader, he was familiar with the game. Everything Ye Xiu said, he understood. It was just that he wasn't used to it, which was why he had so much trouble. As for Caio Yifan, he had the strengths of both sides. Ye Xiu immediately saw this. He could easily keep up with them, which was why Ye Xiu was certain that one practice run was enough. After all, he was a pro player. You don't need to start with shadow image. Instead, it'd be better to attack and deal more damage. You won't have the aggro change to you and you won't take any damage, Ye Xiu said. Shadow image is a ghost that ghost blades can summon at level 25. This ghost can be carried by the user, except it would just be a ghost surrounding the user. The ghost could absorb and reduce damage. The higher the level, the greater the reduction and the more hits it could take. This was a skill solely used for defense. Ye Xiu had told Caio Yifan to not use the skill. This was because the other party members would protect him. Caio Yifan was used to being cannon fodder, but now the team was actively putting in energy to protect him. Ooh, this ice boundary. Is there's a problem? Caio Yifan was terrified. No, it was done very well. Ye Xiu turned around to say to Steamed Bun Invasion, Steamed Bun, it was your mistake this time. It was mine. Steamed Bun Invasion shouted in response. Originally, the ice boundary shouldn't have been used there, but because of Steamed Bun Invasion's mistake, the situation had changed. However, Caio Yifan had adjusted as well. When he cast his ice boundary, he immediately got the crowd control effect he wanted, reducing the team's pressure. Ice Soul was a boundary ghost that could be summoned by level 30 ghost blades. Enemies inside the boundary would take ice elemental magic damage, and there was even a chance for the targets to be frozen. It was a more attack-oriented ghost boundary. However, there was actually a better choice you could have made. After criticizing Steamed Bun Invasion's mistake, he returned to Caio Yifan. The King's Avatar Volume 3 A Stormy Situation Chapter 177 Chapter 177 Dual Linking Ghost Boundaries. Look. Steamed Bun Invasion's previous mistake made it so that the monsters weren't gathered perfectly. However, the 3 monsters that slipped through just happened to be heading towards you. Here, the best choice wasn't to immediately use Ice Boundary to control them. Instead, you could have first used a Ghost Slash to send the 3 monsters back into the desired positions and make up for Steamed Bun's mistake. Then using Ice Boundary would have been perfect, Ye Xiu said. But there were more than 3 that had slipped through, Caio Yifan said. Aren't we a team? Ye Xiu smiled. We can help fix the mistake and coordinate with you as well. If a mistake like this happens, does this mean that there's no hope for setting the record? Caio Yifan said. From that perspective, such a mistake really wouldn't be good. We could make up for the lost time, but it wouldn't be enough. However, more important than the record is training our game knowledge and decision-making by going through these types of scenarios. In the previous scenario, it was easy to pull off an ice boundary. But that was in a dungeon. What if that was in a match? Could you be certain that you wouldn't be interrupted while using your ice boundary in a scenario where you have no cover? Ye Xiu said. Caio Yifan immediately understood. I understand. Even though this is only a dungeon, you still have to try hard and increase your game knowledge, Ye Xiu said. Right, Caio Yifan responded. He felt as if a door in his heart was opening, as if the bottleneck he had been stuck at was slowly being broken through. He wasn't sure if it was because he had switched classes or because he had received coaching under a god, or maybe even both. Caio Yifan thought. Even though he had already taken the dungeon very seriously, after hearing Ye Xiu's words, he felt that he still hadn't placed enough emphasis onto it. Even if it was just a dungeon, there were still lots of places for improvement. Under Ye Xiu's constant instructions, the team quickly pushed forward. Ye Xiu's team was using the missing a player strategy they were experimenting with last night. The monsters that they weren't originally able to kill fast enough and the places where they had originally struggled with, suddenly turned good with the addition of 1-inch ash. Tang Ru felt indescribably shocked. To be able to create a strategy before one of their members had ever coordinated with them before, just how much further did she need to go before she could catch up to Ye Xiu? You too. Ye Xiu called out to Tang Ru and steamed Bun Invasion. Pay more attention to his ghost boundaries. Coordination is mutual. Now that I think about it, do you two know the effects of these ghost boundaries? No, the two new players said. Ye Xiu was helpless. He had no other choice but to give them a brief introduction about the skill. Support classes who provided support on the sidelines didn't necessarily count as coordination. Those being supported have to fully utilize the support. If you don't even know what the effects of the support are, then how are you going to utilize them? In a level 30 Ghost Blade's arsenal, besides the defense-oriented Ghost Shadow Image and the attack-oriented Boundary Ghost Ice Soul, there was also Sword Soul that could be learned at level 10. The Sword Soul's strength was that the allies within its boundary would have increased strength and intelligence, which determined the amount of physical damage and magic damage one could deal. It could be said that any class within the Sword Soul would gain huge buffs. This skill was also called Sword Boundary by players. The skill could be learned at level 10 and could be skilled up every 3 levels. A level 30 Ghost Blade could have a level 7 Sword Soul, which would increase strength and intelligence by 105. As soon as this number was said by Ye Xiu, Tang Ru and steamed Bun Invasion jumped back in astonishment. The two checked their profiles and immediately recognized how terrifying an increase in 105 points of strength and intelligence were. Battle mages and brawlers had the same strength growth. At level 30, without any equipment or stat rewards, their base strength was 105 points. Of course, a character's base stats weren't the most accurate indicators. In reality, with their equipment and rewards, the two characters would have much more. However, 105 extra strength and intelligence was enough to make them start sweating. Ghost Blades had to cast Sword Soul at the right time, and the other characters would have to fully utilize the Sword Soul as well. They should try and deal as much damage as possible within the sword boundary during the duration of the effect. Seeing this incredible number, Tang Ru and steamed Bun Invasion already understood. The coordination between the two sides was now smoother. Even though it was their first practice trial, it was already much better than their previous trial with Full Moon Guild's guild leader. Their coordination with each other had been improved by the utilization of the support, but the crucial point was still Caio Yifen's outstanding view of the general situation. Caio Yifen himself felt like he was a fish back in the water in this dungeon. No, to be more accurate, it was in this team that he found the feeling of being a fish back in the water. Caio Yifen had already believed that even if they weren't running a dungeon, even if they were in any other place, even if they were in a pro match, he felt as if he had a place in the team. So moved. In such a short moment of time, feelings of being blessed had risen many times. In return, he tried his hardest in this dungeon. They pushed through the dungeon without a hitch. In the blink of an eye, they reached the final boss Toya. Caio Yifen looked forward to the god's commands. He knew that Toya was the most influential part of the record. In the end, God actually talked less in this area. The entire team was more free to do their own thing. Even though there was some coordination, it didn't seem like it was good enough. They seemed more passive in front of Toya. Caio Yifen was a pro, after all. He could roughly judge that with the way they were playing, they wouldn't be able to beat the record. Caio Yifen felt a bit puzzled. Even he could come up with some sort of strategy for this part. He could at least do better than their current strategy of randomly playing. God Ye Xiu had to have some sort of plan, right? Just as he was thinking this, he heard God's Lord Grim move next to him and ask, "What do you think about this?" After a brief pause, Caio Yifen said the truth. "I think that if we play like this, then breaking the record might be difficult." "You don't need to worry." Tang Ru's soft mist had also come over. Hearing their discussion, she added, "All of this is because someone here refuses to go all out. If not, then you'd be seeing a completely different scene." "Ha ha," Ye Xiu laughed. He then said to Caio Yifan, "When the time comes, you'll know what to do. You can do it." Caio Yifan was a bit lost, but he didn't ask. After finishing the run, they had completely understood the strategy. 2 chances. Ye Xiu wasn't only saying this to Caio Yifan, but to the other 3 as well. Having strong mechanics didn't mean that you wouldn't make mistakes. "Yeah," Tang Ru simply answered. "Relax, I only show my true strength at crucial times like this," Steamed Bun Invasion said. "You too," Suma Cheng reminded Ye Xiu as well. Ye Xiu obviously wasn't someone who was immune to mistakes. In his 10 years of gaming, he had plenty of experience making mistakes. "Begin." Under this command, they began. In the beginning, where they needed to pull monsters, their current strategy was similar to their original one. Except this time, Caio Yifan's 1-inch ash helped pull the monsters. As soon as they gathered together, sword, soul, Ye Xiu had only said one of the words, when Caio Yifan's sword soul had been casted. The timing had been grasped perfectly, coordinating seamlessly with the rest of the team. Ye Xiu was extremely happy. Bringing an expert like this was so much easier. He grasped everything so quickly. The others were also controlling the monsters. If not, then the monsters would escape the sword soul's range. The difference between their DPS inside the boundary and outside the boundary was completely different. There was only one bad part. Sword Soul only lasted 20 seconds, while the cooldown was 30 seconds. There was no way they could keep it on forever. There would always be 10 seconds of free time. But this time, the instant the Sword Soul disappeared, Lord Grimm suddenly jumped backwards to escape from the mob. He then waved his sword and a shadowy mist leapt out of his sword, congealing into a dark violet ghost. 1-inch Ash's Sword Soul had faded away, but a new one had followed up closely. "Sword Soul. If it's Sword Soul, I know it as well," Ye Xiu said. Lord Grimm's sword danced and followed up with a berserker skill. The Ghost Blade Sword Soul was a level 10 skill, so of course Unspecialized had it. The effects of the two couldn't overlap, but it could be used to fill up the empty gap. This type of coordination had a name in Glory: dual linking ghost boundaries. In the current professional alliance, only Team Void used this type of strategy. Besides their team captain Ye Xiu's Sobbing Ghost, they also had another Ghost Blade class. However, Ye Xiu and Caio Yifan's dual linking ghost boundaries weren't perfect. After all, Lord Grimm's unspecialized class could only learn the Sword Soul and no other ghost summoning skill. Even so, it still let them maximize their DPS. The first wave was cleared quickly inside of the ghost boundary. Second wave, third wave, fourth wave. On their smooth journey through, there wasn't any excessive talk. Not just Caio Yifan, but Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion no longer needed Ye Xiu's constant reminders after running it so many times. The two weren't lacking in the slightest in what they had to do. Caio Yifan's Phantom Demon was doing even better. His ghost boundaries came out whenever they were needed, and he wouldn't mess anything up whenever he wasn't. He also linked together with Lord Grimm's occasional Sword Soul well, too. Without any suspense, everyone swiftly smashed their way to the dungeon's rear garden. Only a mere 19 minutes had passed. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 178, Chapter 178. Their wishes finally came true for the final boss, Toya. If they played randomly like the previous run, there might not be enough time. This was originally a relatively difficult boss. Blue Brook Guild's Changing Spring and the other experts had to train hard numerous times in order to suppress it through coordination. But what about now? What method was left in store? Caio Yifan recalled how they had said that God wasn't going all out and became a bit curious as well as a bit uncertain. "Sword Soul," Ye Xiu yelled out while they were rushing forward. If Kaiao Yifan was making the decision, he definitely wouldn't cast Sword Soul so early. However, he trusted in the god's decision and immediately cast Sword Soul when he heard it. 1-inch Ashes demon-slaying blade flashed. A ghostly mist congealed into a Sword Soul after the chant and formed a boundary. This Sword Soul shout also seemed to be instructions to others as well. Cleansing Mist's hand cannon spit out a flame tongue and hit the idol boss, Toya, with an artillery shell. Toya turned his head and rushed at them. He stepped on a stone in the garden and somersaulted forward. In midair, he whipped out his leg to kick them. Lord Grimm moved up as well. His 1,000-chance umbrella turned into a battle lance. The two brushed past each other, however Toya suddenly disappeared. He had unexpectedly been circle swung onto the ground by Lord Grimm. So quick! Kaiao Yifan's point of view was very different from Tang Ru's and Steamed Bun invasions. Whenever Ye Xiu attacked, those two had seen it so often that they were completely indifferent to it. However, Kaiao Yifan could see how difficult the move was. Positioning, speed, precision, prediction. In this type of situation, if even a single one was slightly lacking, the attack would have failed. Just using circle swing didn't mean that you would hit the monster. Glory isn't such a simple game. With the way circle swing captured the target, Toya had no way of quick recovering in order to avoid this knockdown. But he could be considered quick as well. Right when he crashed to the ground, he sent out a shock wave in order to get back up. Lord Grimm had already anticipated this. As soon as his circle swing flung Toya down to the ground, he immediately leaped back. Not only did Toya's shock wave not hit anything, Lord Grimm drew out his sword and sent out a sword draw towards him. So quick! Kaiao Yifan had the same impression as before. Toya and Lord Grimm's battle tempo really was fast, but Toya was a system NPC. He didn't need to think or make decisions, but Lord Grimm. He was able to make consecutive moves without practically any time to think. Each move he made suppressed Toya's offensive. The strength of an unspecialized. Kaiao Yifan understood this, but more importantly, even with an arsenal of skills available for use, God Ye Xiu was able to pick the most suitable choice with little time to think. His quick and accurate decision-making were almost like a robot's. Too scary. Kaiao Yifan was astonished. Just how much experience did he have? If this was any other pro player, they might be able to make the same accurate decisions, but to do so with almost no time to think, only a select few could do that. Experience could only be gained with time, and time couldn't be controlled. Old generals could no longer be as full of energy as new players. As for new players, if they wanted the experience of the old generals, the only way was to wait and become old generals themselves. In this situation, where Lord Grimm was suppressing Toya by himself, the final obstacle became incomparably easy. To the other four, this battle was just like any other. They were against a very ordinary boss. All they had to do was coordinate with Lord Grimm and deal damage. Sword Soul, Ice Soul. Kaiao Yifan switched between the two boundaries. He could also use Ghost Slash, Moonlight Slash, Full Moon Slash to deal damage. However, these slash skills clearly weren't too high-leveled. Skill points had to be saved for skilling up the Phantom Ghosts. The damage dealt by Phantom Demons couldn't compare with the damage dealt by Sword Demons. 1 minute. Toya's health had already dropped by. If they maintained this tempo, they would definitely finish the battle in 3 minutes. With so much time left, they could even afford to make a few mistakes. Too strong. Kaiao Yifan lamented. Even though an enormous amount of importance had been attached to him, he understood very clearly that he wasn't the final deciding factor in setting the record. It was a fact that Phantom Demons could increase the entire team's strength. In theory, the more members in the team, the more useful a Phantom Demon was. This was why all of the big guilds would specially train a few Phantom Demons. However, in the Professional Alliance's official matches, The number of players that could go on stage was restricted to only 5 players. This limited the amount of support a Phantom Demon could provide. In a 5-man team, Phantom Demons weren't the worst class, but the value of their support might not make them more valuable than other classes either. Their existence wasn't a necessity, but rather just another option. In Desolate Land, the usefulness of a Phantom Demon was similar to this as well. He could provide support, but he wouldn't be the main factor for why the team would break the record. The true factor was still Lord Grimm. It was because the strengths of an unspecialized could be fully utilized, which allowed them to surpass this dungeon's limit. It was because of the unspecialized that they could employ dual overlapping ghost boundaries. It was because of the unspecialized that they could completely suppress Toya. In addition, Lord Grimm's weapon was clearly self-made. It was clearly a top-tier silver weapon. How could Caio Yifen not know about silver weapons? There was no way other teams had this type of advantage in damage. The record was right in front of them. 2 minutes had passed. Toya's health had dropped down by attack, attack, attack. The 5 continued to attack. This was only the second time Caio Yifen had coordinated with the others, yet their coordination wasn't lacking in the slightest. Actively coordinating with others, this was his biggest strength. Whether this was because of talent or because he was trained as a person on the edge, no one knew. Careful, almost red blood. When Toya's health had dropped down to 10%, Ye Xiu warned them as usual. Tang Ru and the others were completely indifferent. Toya becoming enraged didn't mean anything. He would still be suppressed by Lord Grimm. On the other hand, Caio Yifen made preparations for red blood. As soon as he saw Toya go into red blood, he suddenly used the grab skill Ghost Claw. After capturing Toya, he followed up with a moonlight slash, launching Toya into the air. Icy frost formed at the tip of his blade. The ice shattered and an ice soul flashed out. Ice boundary. The midair Toya continuously took ice damage. When he fell, he froze into a giant ice cube. The team rushed forward to attack. However, the boss's resistance was high, so the freeze didn't last long. But after breaking out of the ice, what could Toya do next? Under Lord Grimm's lead, Toya's health continued to plummet. Sky Strike, Dragon Tooth, Falling Flower Palm, Anti-Tank Missile, and even a Wretched Brick. In the final string of attacks, the explosion from the anti-tank missile sent Toya flying into the stone wall. No one moved up to continue attacking. Toya had been killed. System announcement. Congratulations to players Lord Grimm, Cleansing Mist, Steamed Bun Invasion, Soft Mist, 1-inch Ash for breaking the Desolate Land record time, 22:35:22. After this brief message appeared, the World Channel exploded. There wasn't any excessive amazement. For new players in the new server, they didn't have any concept of what the time for the record should be. They weren't like the veterans who jumped in fright at this terrifying record. For the 10th server's players, they only had one thought: the record had been broken. It had been broken by Lord Grimm again. As a result, mostly congratulation messages appeared on the World Channel. Their congratulations weren't directed towards Lord Grimm, but rather Blue Brook Guild, especially that Cloud Listening Blade from Blue Brook Guild. Cloud Listening Blade was Poplar Beach, who was constantly shouting at Lord Grimm to fight him, to break their record. At this moment, the players were all congratulating Blue Brook Guild and Cloud Listening Blade for having their wishes finally come true. The players were sarcastic and savage. It didn't matter how skilled or experienced they were. The new players were all mocking them. Poplar Beach was pale. He had sent another message a few moments ago. He specially guarded this time to provoke him. And in the end, a system announcement had given him a reply. Impossible. Poplar Beach didn't want to believe it. The record they had set was already the limit. Poplar Beach had been confident that it wasn't possible to improve it, which was why he had been so arrogant. But now, the other side actually improved the time by about 2 minutes. Poplar Beach couldn't imagine how this was possible. The mocking continued. The person who had been stepped on. This type of show was something everyone loved to see. Everyone was discussing what Cloud Listening Blade was probably feeling right now. Sharp comments popped up one after another. Poplar Beach didn't want to look at his screen. He was afraid that he'd die from anger in front of his computer. How should he respond? Poplar Beach had his head lowered as he stared at his keyboard. He didn't know what keys he should press. He suddenly heard a system prompt telling him that a friend had gone offline, making Poplar Beach lift up his head to look. The one who had gone offline was Blue River. Poplar Beach obviously knew where Blue River was going. Poplar Beach felt embarrassed and resentful. The guy had finally found his sore spot. Poplar Beach was aware that things weren't looking good. How did Lord Grimm and his group set this record? These guys didn't have all orange equipment, right? This thought kept circling around Poplar Beach's head, but he wasn't convinced. Would he make such a large investment just for a dungeon record? Moreover, this was the new server. Even if you had the money, that didn't mean it was possible to gather a full set of level 30 orange equipment for yourself, let alone an entire team. How could orange equipment be as common as cabbage? Lord Grimm, to be able to beat our record, it looks like you really do have some skill. Do you have time to duel me now? Poplar Beach hesitated for a long time, but in the end, he pressed enter and sent it the King's Avatar Volume 3 A Stormy Situation, Chapter 179, Chapter 179. A chance for a comeback. The entire world was mocking Poplar Beach's Cloud Listening Blade, so of course they were waiting for his response. As a result, many saw this message and a bunch of new messages immediately appeared. Comments such as, "Cloud Listening Blade is such a man," "Cloud Listening Blade is a true hero," "Cloud Listening Blade refuses to die with his head low," and so on. They were still filled with sarcasm. Clearly, no one liked arrogant guys like him. This didn't mean that people who like to be arrogant wouldn't know this. It was just that arrogant people weren't arrogant so they could be liked. They were arrogant because they liked the pleasure of standing above others and looking down on them. When Poplar Beach had bragged about the record he had set, although everyone was angry, they had no way of beating his record. This was the pleasure of being arrogant. But now, when he was above everyone, he had suddenly been stepped on. This was an extremely painful feeling. The reason Poplar Beach continued to demand a duel against Lord Grimm was so that he could keep up his arrogant attitude. He couldn't do anything about the record, so his only choice was to use a duel to prove that he wasn't a braggart but rather an amazing top-tier player. This was what it truly meant to be arrogant. Amidst the storm of ridicule, Poplar Beach waited for Lord Grimm's reply. He didn't have to wait long. This time, Lord Grimm finally replied to him. "How about tomorrow afternoon? Use your main account." "Good, I hope that you won't run away," Poplar Beach coldly typed out. He then waited for a very long time, but no reply came. How could Ye Xiu care to respond to such a pointless provocation? Ye Xiu had already brought his party into the dungeon again. This time, everyone was still playing diligently, especially at the final boss, Toya. Everyone coordinated with Lord Grimm even better this time. This time, the record had been broken again. 22:29:57. The world went into an uproar again. The record had improved by 6 seconds. It wasn't much. However, at this record limit, another 6 seconds wasn't easy. It was practically the result of a perfect run. At the same time, after the 3 runs ended, Lord Grimm and the other 4 characters leveled up to level 31. Su Macheng left first to sleep. Kaio Yifan was also a pro player. He shouldn't have had so much free time, but after being with Ye Xiu and the others for these 3 runs, a completely different feeling had already risen up in his heart. When the 3 runs were finished, he actually wasn't willing to go to sleep and went a line canyon with them. On Blue Brook Guild's side, after changing Spring heard Blue River return with the news, they rushed over to the 10th server and saw the new record on the leaderboards. They were all speechless. Before they could even recover, the record had been broken again. One time maybe they were just miraculously lucky, but 2 times in a row, that, without a doubt, was a proof of their strength. Even though Changing Spring had braced himself for this long ago, from the guild's point of view, this was a disastrous result. However, there was nothing they could do. If they hadn't fought for it, there was no way they could explain it to their own guild. Right now, even at the guild headquarters in the Heavenly Domain, they were discussing the great battle over the records in the 10th server. Everyone, particularly Poplar Beach and his group, would agree to a compromise only if there was no other choice. In order to keep the peace in Blue Brook Guild, they had to sacrifice a bit of the 10th server's Blue Brook Guild's reputation. At least right now, they were only adding frost to the snow. They were already a laughingstock in the 10th server. Their image could only be recovered at a later time. It could be said that from here on out, Blue Brook Guild's development would fall behind the other guilds. However, a chance for a comeback was still possible. Poplar Beach's duel with Lord Grimm. This was their chance. Even though Blue River wasn't in favor of this duel and wasn't optimistic about it, he had no choice but to admit that if Poplar Beach won, then they'd be able to win back their guild's image in the 10th server. This duel was being followed by many. The entire world was talking about it. Who knew how many would wait for the afternoon show? Poplar Beach's actions, from a reasoning standpoint, weren't stupid. This was actually the best way of winning back their guild's prestige. However, could he win? Blue River was very doubtful, but he couldn't say anything. After all was said and done, he was always for the guild. At this moment, he was hoping that Poplar Beach would win, even though he could foresee that if Poplar Beach actually won, then his arrogance would rise from the earth to the heavens. This struggle over the record deeply impacted tyrannical ambition as well. Blue Brook Guild had bravely stepped out. This was something they wished to see. As a result, they didn't rush to fight for the Line Canyon record and decided to carry their tarnished name for 2 more days. They wanted to see what Lord Grimm's attitude was and what he would do. In the end, they saw it all. Lord Grimm had sneakily stolen the level 36 wild boss first kill, and then easily stepped on Blue Brook Guild's record twice. Tyrannical Ambition's boss, Ye Xiu, had personally come to the 10th server as well. Similarly, he also gathered the guild's strongest troops to come over. But after seeing this result, he quickly gave up on his original plan. The record's limit, it seemed like there were 2 of them. One for normal players like them and another for Lord Grimm's team. Ye Xiu was truly doubting whether Lord Grimm had set the record for the same dungeon. The record that was the limit in their eyes had been crushed by minutes. What do we do? Talk with Lord Grimm? Cold Knight was naturally depressed. Why was the 10th server so troublesome? Such a difficult guy had popped up. Let's not rush. They're still a few days away from reaching level 33. Right now, Blue Brook Guild is in the spotlight, so we're being overlooked. I'll see if there's any other way to resolve this situation. Giving in to Lord Grimm's demands isn't good. We have to at least show that we have the strength to resist his suppression, even if it is just once. After that, we can still negotiate with him and we'll have a better time. Ye Xiu said, "How do we prove our strength?" Cold Knight stared blankly. Their experts clearly wouldn't cut it. Blue Brook Guild was their proof for that. "I can try and ask the team," Ye Xiu said. "That's a bit too much, right?" Cold Knight began sweating. Team Tyranny was a powerful team that was aiming to be champions. Ask them to help them set a record in the 10th server. With the team captain Han Wenking's personality, Cold Knight felt like they were looking to be shouted at. Ye Xiu's suggestion was too brave. Let me think." Clearly, Ye Xiu was also hesitant. Besides these 2 guilds, the other guilds were extremely happy seeing Lord Grimm turn Blue Brook Guild's record limit into ashes, and twice too. Their emotions were constantly going up and down. But after taking joy in their enemy's plight, they also had to ponder over their own situation. This issue really was quite troublesome. The night went by like this. After Poplar Beach arranged for the duel, he left the 10th server and went on his main account. He went to the arena and fought for the entire night. He specifically looked for opponents with high win rates and practiced fiercely. In the blink of an eye, the afternoon came and Poplar Beach went to the 10th server to look for Lord Grim. He hadn't slept well at all. He was already feeling tired, but his mind couldn't calm down. As soon as he closed his eyes, he would think of the arena. Even compared to that time he decided to challenge Blue Bridge Spring Snow, he had never felt so nervous before. Even though he wasn't in his best condition, it was truly too shameful to schedule the duel for a different date. Even if he did, he still might not be able to calm down. By then his condition would be even worse. Poplar Beach did a quick search and found that Lord Grim was online. He immediately shouted at him in the World Channel. The players in the entire server shook. He had arrived. He had finally arrived. "You should go create the room," Lord Grim replied. "Level field." Poplar Beach switched to his main account and entered the arena. He created a room and invited Lord Grim. In Happy Internet Cafe, Ye Xiu left the 10th server and went to find Chen Guo. Boss Chen was also playing Glory right now. She was sitting in front of her computer and her hands were moving about like the wind. Ye Xiu blew out 2 smoke rings. Boss Chen's avatar staggered. She turned around and yelled angrily, "What are you doing?" "Boss, let me borrow your account," Ye Xiu said. "To do what?" "To PK with someone," Ye Xiu said. "Who? What was his name again?" Ye Xiu scratched his head. Chen Guo rolled her eyes and said as her character returned to the main city, "Level or free?" "Level," Ye Xiu said. "Room number?" "I don't know." "Then how am I supposed to look for it?" Chen Guo asked. "Go to the side and say that Lord Grim has arrived or something," Ye Xiu said. Chen Guo typed it in. Soon after, a pile of messages from cheering spectators covered the screen, scaring Chen Guo. After that, she received an invite and accepted it. She entered the field. The map that had been chosen was the most basic ring. It was a simple and straightforward map. Most players liked it. After Chen Guo's character went in, she immediately sucked in a cold breath. For there to be so many spectators, this was something she had never imagined. What you do? Chen Guo had originally planned on playing for a while, but after seeing so many spectators, she immediately felt that the situation was important. She didn't want to mess things up, so she got up and let Ye Xiu take over. And at this moment, the current receptionist Tang Ru stretched out her neck to ask, "Did it start? Did it start?" "About to," Ye Xiu replied. "Help me out for a moment, please." Tang Ru immediately asked the manager to take over for a bit. She then lightly skipped over. "Watching it like this won't be very fun. Let's get on to another account." Chen Guo had a lot of experience and immediately went to turn on another computer. "Don't start yet." She didn't forget to warn Ye Xiu. Even though she didn't really understand the situation, her curiosity had already been sparked. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 180. Chapter 180. The Fastest Launcher, Lord Grim. Poplar Beach was a bit doubtful when he saw that a female character had entered the field. "Yeah," Ye Xiu said. Poplar Beach wasn't too surprised, though. Lord Grim had said that he would borrow an account. Male characters were the same as female characters. Their stats and equipment weren't much different from each other. However, this was something that Ye Xiu had said during their dispute in front of Desolate Land's entrance. How could the other players know this? All they knew was that, yesterday, Lord Grim told his opponent to use his main account. So many concluded that these two characters were both sides' main accounts. Poplar Beach. This character was quite famous. Many veterans from the Heavenly Domain who came to pioneer in the new server knew this character. Poplar Beach. In Happy Internet Cafe, Chen Guo and Tang Ru had turned on a computer and logged into Glory with soft mist. They found the room and entered as a spectator. When Chen Guo saw the opponent's name, she couldn't help but cry it out in surprise. "You're familiar with him?" Tang Ru asked. "I'm not familiar with him, but I do know of him. He's from Blue Brook Guild after all. He's an elite in there, but he's always shouting arrogantly in the world channel. He's really annoying. Chen Guo was in the heavenly domain as well, so she recognized the famous experts from Blue Brook Guild. But clearly her impression of him wasn't good. Oh. Tang Ru was the type of new player who had no concept of how great Blue Brook Guild was. She just thought that they were the same as Full Moon Guild. They were one of the guilds that had asked them to set a record and nothing more. Why are they peeking? Chen Guo asked Tang Ru in doubt while yelling at Ye Xiu. Hey, you can start now. Okay. Ye Xiu put on his headphones and clicked ready. Poplar Beach immediately clicked ready as well, and their match began. Chen Guo and Tang Ru's screen flashed and switched to spectator mode. Are you a male or female? Poplar Beach asked. After entering the field, the two were able to talk to each other. Male, Ye Xiu replied. So you'll be using this character, you're sure that you won't switch? Poplar Beach asked. Yeah. How many rounds to determine who wins or loses? Poplar Beach asked about the details of the duel. 1 round is enough. Ye Xiu laughed. 1 round is enough to let you know the gap between us. I guarantee that you won't fight a second round. Cut the crap, Poplar Beach roared. Even though Chen Guo and Tang Ru weren't able to listen to the two talk in spectator mode, they could hear Ye Xiu, who was sitting next to them. They could hear whatever Ye Xiu was saying. After hearing this, Chen Guo curled her lips towards Tang Ru. He sounds really mad. It started, Tang Ru said. Right now, Chen Guo was controlling the computer, so she needed to adjust the spectating angle. In the ring, after Poplar Beach said that, he took the initiative to attack. His character rushed towards Chasing Haze, which Ye Xiu was controlling. The instant his character entered Chasing Haze's firing range, his character suddenly flashed. Moving in an irregular pattern, Poplar Beach's character immediately blurred into 1, 2, 3, 4 afterimages. Shadow steps, 4 afterimages. Chen Guo immediately shouted. This was a high-level blade master skill. The skill's effects depended on the player's mechanics. Poplar Beach's movements created 4 perfect afterimages, making Chen Guo yell out in astonishment. In her experience against other blade masters, she had never met any players who were able to create 4 afterimages. This Blue Brook Guild's expert really did have the ability to back up his arrogance. Whoa, not bad, Ye Xiu lightly praised. Poplar Beach had quite a bit of experience. His shadow steps were timed perfectly. They were completed the instant he entered Chasing Haze's firing range. To be able to instantly determine Chasing Haze's firing range was a testament to his exceptional knowledge of the game. This judgment could only be made by looking at Chasing Haze's equipment. As for the 4 afterimages that Chen Guo was so astonished about, they weren't anything to Ye Xiu. In the pro scene, which pro blade master couldn't do this? For top-tier blade masters like Quan Zhi Gao Shou, he could create 6.5 afterimages with his movements. 4. Too few. Ye Xiu instantly recognized which of the 4 afterimages was the real one. His mouse moved and Chasing Haze immediately fired out a quantum bomb. At the same time, he tapped the keyboard with his left hand to have Chasing Haze step back. Quantum bomb and laser rifle were similar when they were fired. They had a strong recoil, requiring the user to move their character a step backwards in order to dissolve it. If not, then the character would fall backwards towards the ground. Poplar Beach wasn't too surprised by this quantum bomb. He slid to the side with shadow steps and moved just outside of the quantum bomb's shockwave radius. This precise control made Ye Xiu want to praise him again. But who would have thought that right after Poplar Beach dodged it, he would immediately follow up with a sword draw to hack at the quantum bomb. The system allowed for this type of attack as long as your hand-eye coordination and hand speed was good enough. In theory, you could even slice apart a sharpshooter's bullet. Of course, anyone who could do that would be an expert with mechanics that were even higher than those at the peak. As for people who could slice apart a quantum bomb, quite a few people could do that. However, it also required a good enough hand-eye coordination as well as fast hand speed. However, in this situation, Poplar Beach had already avoided the quantum bomb. For him to suddenly use such a difficult move was completely unnecessary. Besides looking cool, there was no other reason to do so. Ye Xiu helplessly shook his head. Did this guy not understand the situation? Since things were already like this, how could Ye Xiu ignore this huge opening? Without a word, he switched to a gun and used a floating bullet. Launchers could use other weapons other than heavy artillery. It was just that many of the launcher's high-damage skills required a cannon to use. The skill floating bullet wasn't actually a launcher skill. It was a level 20 or below Spitfire skill. It was named floating bullet to indicate the strong knock-up effect the skill had. If the skill was used with a smaller gun, the bullet would come out faster. Switching guns and using dual guns was quite common for gunners. Ye Xiu had noticed that Chasing Haze had a reserve gun when he took over the account. As a result, he pulled out the handgun and quickly fired a floating bullet. However, the following scene made Ye Xiu somewhat surprised. When his floating bullet was fired, he immediately put the handgun away and prepared to switch to the cannon to follow up with an attack. But he then saw that Poplar Beach canceled his sword draw mid-animation and jumped forward, dodging the floating bullet. After landing on the ground, he followed up with a triple slash. As the sword light arced forward, his character closed in on Chasing Haze. Triple slash was a blade master skill that was often used to move quickly. So it was a trap, this guy. Ye Xiu immediately understood. Poplar Beach unexpectedly had a few of his own tricks. His previous actions, which aligned with his show-off personality, were just bait. He used the time that his opponent needed to switch weapons in order to close in. The actions of switching guns wasn't quick because switching weapons had a cooldown. This was one of the biggest obstacles that limited the power of unspecialized characters. Seeing that his ploy had worked, Poplar Beach felt ecstatic in his heart. It was already too late for Chasing Haze to raise her cannon and defend. There wasn't enough time for Chasing Haze to escape with an aerial fire either. He had found an opportunity where he could attack and the opponent had no way of resisting. Poplar Beach had already begun his offensive, however. Ye Xiu returned the surprise. Poplar Beach saw his opponent throw his weapon onto the ground. What? Did he make a mistake in panic? Poplar Beach hadn't expected something like this to happen. Equipment couldn't be dropped in an arena, so could this guy have actually thrown down his weapon by accident? Poplar Beach knew Chasing Haze's firing range, so he had figured out what his opponent's weapon were even before that. Rose Flower Cannon, a level 70 purple weapon. If something like this just dropped on the ground, who wouldn't want to pick it up? Even if you couldn't use it, it was still worth a lot of money. FCK. Chen Guo jumped up from her seat. That Rose Flower Cannon was hers. Ye Xiu had thrown it on the ground. What if the opponent picked it up and took it away? Chen Guo immediately felt a pang of regret. Hate, why didn't she bind it? It was because she was too ambitious. She was always thinking of switching for an orange weapon and then sell her purple weapon. But now, however, Poplar Beach wouldn't pick up the weapon right now. Although he was surprised, he still continued his offensive. However, he suddenly saw a knee strike come flying forward from Chasing Haze. Knee strike? What was the use of that? Poplar Beach sneered. It was true that knee strike was an uninterruptible super armor skill, but unfortunately, Poplar Beach had anticipated that Chasing Haze would use some sort of super armor skill to force them apart. As a result, he used a wave wheel slasher, which could break super armor. This skill actually took some time to execute. However, his opponent was the slowest gunner class, a launcher, so he had more than enough time to interrupt this knee strike. Knee strike was a low-leveled sharpshooter skill. Even though the speed of it was unrelated to the user's firing speed, the weight would affect its speed. A launcher using a cannon and heavy armor would be very slow when using this skill. Poplar Beach had thought that his decision was perfect, but unexpectedly chasing Hayes's knee strike was faster than his wave wheel slasher, so he was launched into the air. Impossible! Poplar Beach adjusted his camera to look down when he suddenly realized weapon weight affected the move's skill. As a result, what was supposed to be a very slow launcher without a cannon in his hands his hands had no weapon. A launcher with nothing in his hands. How fast would the move be? Poplar Beach suddenly realized an issue he had never thought of before.